My entitled mother-in-law says that I'm evil after I don't let her hold my newborn baby that has health problems. And despite the fact that I've tried to explain what's going on so many times, she still refuses to hear me out, putting me in a position where now the entire family is turned against me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. At the end of January, my baby boy was born at 36 weeks and 5 days. Throughout January, we were going to different medical examinations because something seemed wrong with the umbilical cord. And in the end, he was delivered by emergency C-section. He then developed pneumonia, spent 2 weeks in an incubator, and needed a feeding tube because the antibiotics weakened him so much that he literally couldn't eat properly. After a month in the hospital, we were finally discharged, and he is healthy now and has no lasting conditions. This was the hardest month of our lives. And during all of this, I felt that my husband's family did not respect our boundaries at all. They showed absolutely zero empathy towards what we were going through. When we finally got home, we visited our relatives, but we were extremely cautious. We only showed them the baby and asked everyone not to touch him. Now, the family was completely understanding, they were supportive and respectful, but my husband's mother, who is my mother-in-law, completely lost it. She told everyone that she was banned from seeing the baby, and that my parents, according to her, had already surely held him. Every visit turned into comments about why the baby sleeps so much, why he eats so often, and how my husband's holding him wrong, etc. We later heard that she was also telling people that we were ruining the child, and that she knew better what he needed. She started claiming the baby had never even been sick, and that I asked to stay in the hospital longer because we supposedly didn't want to see her. She gossiped about my parents and said about me that evil has moved into this family, and it escalated so much that during Easter, my husband's family said that we should get a divorce. Then my husband's great uncle, whose apartment we were renting and paying for, told us that we would be evicted, so we had to move out. My husband tried talking to his mother multiple times, but she refused to understand anything. She began telling people that my husband was aggressive and yelled at her, which is completely untrue. He was crying and begging her to stop hurting us. We met her just as often as my parents. She even held the baby at the exact same time that they did, but because every visit ended in fighting, we started seeing her less and less. My husband always invited her to come over, but she refused because I was there. She has never tried to adjust our schedule or even help us in any way, shape, or form. We live on the same street, yet she has never been willing to come over. She always expected us to bring the baby to her. She refused to talk to me from the beginning, and now she doesn't even contact my husband unless she wants to emotionally manipulate him. Recently, she even started telling people that we were raising our son against her. After we moved out, we stopped meeting anyone from my husband's family, and we tried calling them, but every conversation became an argument. They denied everything they had previously said. They rewrote events and told us that we were the crazy ones. And at this point, after so many attempts, we've just kind of given up. It feels like talking to a wall. My husband's mother said that she won't do anything to change the situation. The last time they talked, she told him not to send any more pictures of the baby because she doesn't care. And now Christmas is coming up and I don't want to spend it arguing or feeling stressed out. We're planning not to meet with my husband's family at all, but I know his mother will create some kind of drama anyway so that she can play the victim. Now, it's important to note that our relationship was never close. My mother-in-law didn't even acknowledge that we got married. She always made little cunning remarks, but the dynamics in my husband's family are quite strange, so that wasn't unusual. She was not happy about the pregnancy, didn't want a grandchild, and especially she didn't want a boy. Now, we would mostly cut ties with these people, but it still feels strange to think that our son would also be cut off from his relatives. I feel like we can only choose from bad and unhealthy options. My husband's cousins, godparents, and grandparents tell us everything. Only his cousins know that the whole story is made up, but they won't speak up for us because they want to avoid the drama. And I guess we can call them flying monkeys, because they immediately pass on everything my husband's mother tells them. So is there a healthy way out of this? Because right now we really don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, and this is just me talking, the second someone shows me who they are and what they feel about me and my family, personally, I'm gonna believe them and try to make steps moving forward. And no, I'm not saying just cut them off entirely, because that's not always the answer. Like, just because you have like a minor inconvenience doesn't mean, oh yeah, I'm gonna shut this all down, I'm gonna leave the family. Like, no, let's be rational here. Like, that's a crazy way to go about life. Pretty soon you'll wake up and be like, oh, I've got no one in my life. This sucks. Wow, I can't believe I did that to myself. But in this situation, if I was in your shoes, I definitely would get some distance between me and my in-laws. Like, holy crap, they have made up this entire story about you and your family that literally is not true. And I'm pretty sure no amount of evidence is going to convince them otherwise. Like, you could go to the hospital and be like, no, there literally is medical records to prove it. Also, there's medical bills. Like, is this made up too? Did I print this off on my computer just to show it to you? Like, what's going on? Because in my opinion, no matter what you do, it sounds like your mother-in-law is always going to try to play the victim. Like, she's going to extrapolate this and make this into a bigger deal than anybody would need. Oh, and by the way, that's going to be at your expense. sense. Like, I think you know that, but maybe someone needs to vocalize that. So if that was me, I would absolutely start pulling back until they see the error of their ways, which in this case probably is not going to be the case, because the way they're treating you is completely out of line and you definitely don't deserve it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I reached out and I helped someone out on Nextdoor who really needed it. But after I delivered her groceries to her, she immediately started complaining that not all of her items were there. And now at this point, I'm kind of thinking I got scammed and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so Friday, I saw a post on Nextdoor from a woman asking for help with food for her and her son. And you know what? I reached out because I wanted to help. She offered to give me $60 on Wednesday as a thank you, and I didn't ask for anything, but nonetheless, I said okay. Well, yesterday morning, I sent her a DoorDash delivery and I spent maybe $136. Last night, she starts texting me saying I didn't get everything she asked for, complaining about missing mandarin oranges or bacon and stuff like that. But I have screenshots showing those items were out of stock and substituted. But even still, it got weirder from there. A few hours later, I saw another post on Nextdoor from someone with a similar last name, but this time it was a guy. The way this guy wrote sounded like this other lady, only the story was flipped around where he was now a single dad, the mom had passed away, and he needed help with food and gas. Also, it was in the same town and same kind of story. I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, but it really just felt off. I don't even know if she was going to pay me today like she said. And honestly, that's fine. I mean, I didn't expect anything. But the entitlement and weird energy after I helped was really wild. So I guess sometimes you just help out of kindness, only to then end up feeling played. Okay, first of all, I'm pretty sure you just got scammed, and I'm sorry to say that, because bro, what do you mean you looked on Nextdoor and someone said, I need groceries, somebody help, and then you just willingly said, oh, I'll do it for you. Oh, you want to pay me $60 for me to pay $136? Oh yeah, that sounds like a deal, I'll go for it. Like bro, what are you doing? Don't do that. That's a dumb idea. That's one of those ideas that you need to like ignore in the back of your head. Because here's the thing, I'm all about helping people in need and stuff like that, but at least verify your sources. Like this is some random person on Nextdoor being like, I need food, help. And even after you deliver the food, she still complained about what she got. Like, dude, come on. We gotta be a little bit smarter here. That's not a good plan. And I guarantee you, the other post you saw was probably her as well. Like, I'm sure she's been shopping around pretty much all over the place. And if that is the case, that is so toxic and weird. So yeah, this is some sketchy business, and I just don't think it's a smart idea to do that ever again. And hopefully you don't, because this just has scam written all over it. My roommate is concerned that I am constantly sleeping over at my boyfriend's place. And right now, I'm wondering if she's right, because this is one of my first relationships, and I don't know if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's going on. For a bit of context, my boyfriend and I have been dating for a little over a year now. I graduated college back in May and now have a full-time job at my old university. My boyfriend's a senior at the same school, and he lives on campus in an apartment, and I live about 10 minutes away from campus in an apartment with one roommate who is a friend from college. My boyfriend and I only really started sleeping over this past summer because he has sleeping issues, and it took him a while to get comfortable sharing a bed with someone and getting a good night's sleep. Over the summer and at the beginning of the fall, we would sleep over probably once or twice a week at most. But over the course of this summer, it's become more and more frequent. In the last month or so, it's turned into sleeping at his place more days than I sleep at my own, sometimes as many as 6 days a week. And honestly, I love this arrangement. I love falling asleep and waking up next to him. His apartment is on campus, so I get to walk to work in the morning if it's a weekday instead of commuting to work. And it means we spend more time together in general. But I really need to know, like, is this bad? Is it unhealthy for either of us for me to be sleeping over this often? Would it be the same or different if we split time between sleeping over at my place and sleeping at his? The thing is, my place is always sweltering hot, and he has a more comfortable mattress, and again, he's on campus. So it's very close to classes for him and work for me on weekdays to be at his place. He also has roommates who we regularly hang out with or play games with on a whim, which is really nice. And in contrast, my roommate isn't really around often enough to like do something like that. I can tell my roommate is both disappointed and a little judgmental of the fact that I'm over at my boyfriend's place so often, and I think she wishes that we could see each other more often. But the thing is, we still schedule time to hang out as friends at least once every couple of weeks. She just doesn't get to see me as often as a roommate as I guess she wishes she would when we moved in together in September. And while she is entitled to feel however she wants to feel about it, seriously, I need to know, like, is she right? Is this weird in some kind of way? Or if not weird, concerning or unhealthy? If you can't tell, this is my first serious relationship, so I'm having trouble figuring this situation out. I still pay rent and utilities on time. I do my share of cleaning and chores when I'm at the apartment, usually in the afternoons or evenings or even on like the weekdays. But it really makes me wonder, like, how can something that makes me so happy be this confusing? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I think your roommate needs to mind their own business. You're not bothering anybody, and I'm sure your boyfriend loves getting to spend time with you. Like, who cares if you're going over there all the time? Like, you're still paying rent, and I'm sure you're still contributing to, like, chores and stuff. So it's not like you're leaving the place destitute and not doing anything to help out. Plus, this is your life and your relationship, so if you want to spend time with your boyfriend a lot, then go for it. There's literally nothing stopping you, and I just don't see any issues here. So no, I don't think you did anything wrong, and I think your roommate just needs to mind her own business. Am I the jerk for saying that my babysitting rates are $35 an hour? Because after they found out, despite the fact that I'm not normally a babysitter, they freaked out and essentially called me selfish. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I'm a software engineer with a full-time job, as well as a side hustle of doing freelance coding work in my own time. I've always been the type to have a side hustle that I put a lot of my free time into. I mean, I really get bored sitting idle. My freelance hourly rates are like $60 an hour, and at my full-time job, my hourly pay works out to be about $40 an hour. So that's how I value my time. Anyways, over Christmas vacation, I was staying at my parents' house, and my cousin was also staying over with her 3 young kids from Christmas to New Year's. Now, I had been planning on doing some work on my freelance projects when I had free time, and this would be in the mornings when my family had no plans. I wasn't in any rush. I was already ahead of schedule on all of them, but I didn't really have anything else to do. We're also in a really rural area, and it's like an hour drive to the nearest anything. Then, my cousin and her husband asked if I could babysit all day for 3 days so that they could visit some friends in the area and hang out with just the adults. I said I had planned on doing freelance work at the library, and it's here that she offered to pay me to babysit. Well, I said I could if they got close to my freelance rates. She wanted a number, and although my freelance rates are like $60 an hour, I didn't feel like that was right. I mean, it was really high, but also I didn't want to go too low. Honestly, babysitting 3 kids would be harder for me than the routine coding work that I had for my freelance project. I don't know a lot about kids, and I've never babysat for long, and I had a feeling it would be stressful and very difficult. So I said $35 an hour, which is below what I make hourly at work, and what is the bare minimum I'd value my time for, if that time is spent doing difficult work. Well, when I said that, she went crazy at me, saying that's a ridiculous rate for babysitting, that I was entitled and being selfish, and that I'm trying to take advantage of how she didn't have other options. But I said that's way below what I would be making if I had time to do my own work, and I'd be putting off my own real work to babysit. Her husband then got mad at me, saying that I was a 24-year-old girl, that I'm basically near a child myself, that my time is not worth that much anyways, and it's childish to say that it was. He also said that I was a stupid girl for not knowing that babysitting costs like $15 an hour, while also mentioning that when I grow up and have my own kids, I will definitely see how stupid I was being. Well, after he called me stupid, I was done. So I just told them that I hope they could find somebody else. My mom thinks that I asked for something offensive, and my cousin and her husband obviously did too. So am I the jerk here? Because this situation is incredibly weird. Okay, no, you're definitely not the jerk. They want you to babysit those kids for 3 days straight. The only reason they're pissed off is because they were hoping to get you to do it for free. So no, you're not the jerk. Obviously, you could have made way more money doing your freelance job, and the fact that they don't see you're giving them a huge discount is crazy, and honestly, their entitlement is definitely showing. Am I the jerk for not giving up my seat at the bar after a lady literally got pissed off that we snagged one before she could? Because what followed was probably the weirdest display of entitlement I've ever seen in my life, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's how it all went down. So my girlfriend and I went to a restaurant this weekend with the intention of eating at the bar. We get into the bar area and find every stool is taken, and there are about 6 people standing several feet away, drinking and possibly waiting for a table. So overall, it's some pretty normal stuff. My girlfriend and I hover near the bar for a few minutes, and I spot 2 guys paying their bill. I approach them and I ask if they're leaving, and they say that they are, and so when they get up, we snag the 2 stools as the bartender clears their plates. We're sitting there for about 30 seconds before I get a tap on my shoulder. When I turn around, I find a woman behind me, and she says to me, "We were waiting over there for a spot at the bar, and we were here first." Now, there is no list or designated area to stand to wait for a spot at the bar. So without hesitation, I just kind of laughed and said, well, that's not how the bar works. My girlfriend immediately had my back and was like, yeah, getting a spot at the bar doesn't work like that. But this woman was incredulous and repeated herself again. But my girlfriend and I just turned around and grabbed our menus and ordered. Well, of course, 10 minutes later, the woman and her date got a spot directly across from us at the U-shaped bar and gave us the stink eye the entire time. And I think she may have even took our photo. It was incredibly awkward, but I remained defiant in my reasoning. First come, first serve at a bar. And if the roles were reversed, I think I would have been like, oh, well crap, I guess I missed those guys standing up. Better pay more attention next time. But still, it was awkward and I felt kind of guilty by the time we left. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm not sure if we made a mistake. No, you're not the jerk. I think you're right on this one. She's obviously just pissed off that she didn't snag that spot first, and it's like, dude, if there was a waiting spot spot for some kind of like bar seat, then I'm pretty sure the bar itself would probably organize that and be like, okay, the queue starts here or something like that. So no, you're not the jerk. This lady's just having sour grapes about something really dumb. And in my opinion, I think you did the only smart thing, which is to ask somebody and be like, hey, can I take your spot? Because otherwise you would have been waiting around just as long as this lady was. Am I the jerk for refusing to go on the family Christmas trip after my dad backed out of our agreement that I had been working towards for the past 4 years? Because right now I am very pissed off, and at this point I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, when I was 14 years old, my parents wanted me to quit gaming and focus on real skills. I love gaming and streaming, but my dad especially thought it was a waste of time, and he actually kept pushing me to get a real job instead. So we made a deal. If I got a job and kept my grades above a 3.5 GPA and saved $3,000 by the time I was 18, he would take me and a friend on a week-long trip to Japan for Christmas break senior year. No parents, just me and whoever I wanted, and he'd cover all the expenses. Japan, by the way, is my dream destination, and I've wanted to go ever since I was a kid. So I worked my butt off. I got a job at 15 bussing tables. I worked every summer and most weekends during school. I kept my GPA at 3.7, and I saved way more than $3,000. I'm now 18 years old, and I have almost $5,000 saved up. Well, last week, my dad sits me down and says that we need to talk about the Japan trip. Now, at this point, I'm excited because I'm thinking, oh, he wants to start planning. But instead, he says to me, so I looked at flights and hotels and it's going to cost like $8,000 total. That's insane. So here's what we're going to do. You can take that $3,000 you saved up and we'll do a road trip somewhere in the United States instead. Maybe we can go to Seattle or something like that. And when he said this, I was like, what are you talking about? We literally had a deal. He then said, yeah, and I kept my end of it. I'm taking you on a trip. But I countered back and said, that's not what we agreed on. He then said, we never put it in writing that it specifically had to be Japan. You should be grateful that I'm even offering anything at all. Most kids don't even get trips. Well, when he said that, I just told him I'm not going. I said that he completely betrayed me and I spent 4 years working toward this specific thing. But he's saying that I'm being dramatic and ungrateful, that I should have known an international trip was unrealistic. But it's like, wait a second, he's the one who suggested Japan in the first place. Well, now my entire family is mad at me for ruining Christmas because apparently he had already planned the Seattle trip and got an Airbnb. But I told them I'd rather stay home than go on a trip. That basically shows my dad is admitting that his word means nothing. My mom says that I'm being stubborn and I need to let it go, that I did accomplish something and I should be proud of it. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I am devastated. No, you're not the jerk. Your dad lied to you. And I don't know about you, but that is really messed up. Like, that really is a nasty trick if you think about it. Instead of playing with friends and going and doing things, you spent your teenage years literally working and keeping your grades up to like a really high standard. And sure, people do that all the time. Like, it's not that unusual, but for the added pressure of like, oh, if I do this, my dad's gonna take me to Japan, only for him to then turn around and be like, psych, we're not gonna do that. Like, that would really piss me off and I would feel so betrayed. Because dude, I'm right there with the original poster. Your dad absolutely said you would go to Japan with a friend. And he probably lied to you just so you would get out of the house and work and save up and get good grades. Which is a good thing for you to do, but it's also like, wow, you lied the entire time. You tricked me into doing all this instead of like actually following through with your word. So holy crap, yeah, I would be pissed off as well. He lied to you for like what, 4 or 5 years? You had all your hopes up, you spent all your time saving up money, trying to go above and beyond meeting your goal, only for this guy to turn around and just stab you in the back. Like, that's all this is. And it's really comical that he set up an Airbnb already and he's like, oh yeah, let's just go to like, oh, I don't know, maybe we can go to Seattle. And it's like, dude, I've never even been to Seattle and that would really suck compared to Japan. So yeah, I would be very pissed off if I was in your shoes. I would never trust him again after being lied to for 4 years, and for him to try and act like, oh, well, we didn't get it in writing. It's like, yeah, we didn't get it in writing because you're my dad and I thought I could trust you. So his behavior is completely uncalled for and I'm so sorry this happened because you absolutely do not deserve this. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that he has absolutely no say in what I do, as he walked out on the family when I was 3 years old and never made any contributions to my upbringing? Because after my mom said that I went a little too far, I'm now questioning pretty much everything that I said. And at this point, I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my parents split when I was 3 years old. My dad moved to a different state for work, and I've seen him maybe twice a year ever since then. He also doesn't pay child support. There was some legal thing where he got out of it because my mom makes decent money. So my mom basically raised raised me solo. She paid for everything. My schooling, my clothing, my sports, my car, my college savings, literally all of it. Well, last month my dad came to visit for a few days, and this is the first time in almost a year. I was hanging out with some friends making plans to go to a concert next month, and he overheard it and said that I'm not allowed to go because the band has explicit lyrics and he doesn't approve of it. When he said this, I kind of laughed because like, what are you talking about? He hasn't been around and I just told him I am going. He then said that I need to respect his authority as my parent, that he is still my father and that I need to listen to him. But that's when I said to him, you haven't contributed anything to raising me financially or otherwise. No contributions, no say in what I do. He then got really quiet and left the room, and my mom overheard this and told me later that was harsh even if it is true, that he is still my dad and I should be more respectful. But I'm 17 and he basically has been absent my entire life. Why now would he want to suddenly parent me during his twice yearly visits? So seriously, am I the jerk here? Like, was I too harsh in that scenario? Because right now I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Okay, it is baffling to me. No, you're absolutely not the jerk. This guy's an idiot for trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm your father and you need to listen to me. But it's like, oh, okay, you want the authority and like the respect of a dad without actually doing anything to contribute to being a father. Because being a father means showing up and actually being there for your kids, not just visiting twice a year and being like, oh, you can't go to that concert because I don't approve of it. Like the dad in this story might as well be like an occasional uncle who comes by to visit. They've got no authority over you. They have absolutely no say in the matter. So in that regard, I do not think you're the jerk. I think your dad's an idiot for trying to make some kind of power play of being like, oh, I'm your father, you have to listen. That is so hypocritical and hilarious in my opinion, because this guy's done literally everything except be a father figure in your life, and in my opinion, you absolutely owe him nothing. My crazy narcissistic mother called the cops on me twice for bringing my phone over to her house. But after years of dealing with her awful treatment, as well as her mistrust towards me and my father, I'm seriously at my breaking point and I now just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So my dad just bought me a new phone for my birthday. I really liked it, so I decided to bring it to my mom's house. And that weekend, I brought it to my mom's house and she was completely cool with it. So I thought to myself, okay, since she is fine with it, I should be able to bring it again, right? Well, when she picked me up from school, she started to head to my dad's house, and I asked her, well, why are we going to my dad's house? And this was unusual because she despised my dad and my stepmom. She responded by saying, because you are not going to bring that phone to my house ever again. And she sounded super grouchy, even though I just asked her a simple question. When we arrived, my dad stepped out on the front porch and he was confused. I mean, we all were. My mom told me to hand the phone to my dad, which I refused to do so because I didn't know the reasoning. Plus, it was my own property. And my therapist told me it would be better if I bring it just in case something happens and I need to call somebody for some reason. My dad asked what was going on because he was genuinely confused of why she was there. At this point, my mom went ballistic. She went on about how I shouldn't be calling my dad on her weekend, even though she tries to distance herself from me when I am there. She even tries to keep me in my room and just stays on her phone. So why should it matter if I'm calling someone that actually enjoys my company? Well, my mom got mad that I wouldn't give my dad my phone, so she had the bright idea of saying she was going to call the cops on her own daughter. She said to me, if you don't give your dad your phone, I am calling the cops. I asked her, okay, well, what are they going to do? Since I literally didn't understand why she was so upset in the first place. She said that they will handle it because it is a domestic dispute, which I was confused because she is the one who started it in the first place. Plus, she's the one trespassing because the court says that they shouldn't even go to each other's houses, and on the summer, they will meet up at a meeting place to avoid conflict. When the cops showed up, they basically said that I should just give up my phone to my dad to avoid conflict, but there is really nothing that they can do. So I agreed and I gave it to my dad. And I hate arguing with her because she is a narcissistic person and she would guilt trip me into believing that she was right. Now, this is not the first time that she called the cops, because the second time she has called the cops was at her house. I had brought my phone again because my dad, my stepmom, and my therapist all said to me that it would be best just in case something happens. I was walking around with my phone in my hoodie pocket just so she wouldn't go through my bags. And also, yes, she does go through my bags because she just doesn't trust me. My phone has a pop socket, and I guess she saw it because she asked me if I had my phone. Now, I denied having it, but she got mad and said to me, I see it in your pocket. Now hand it over or I'm calling the cops again. I was shocked that she would call them over something so trivial. She tried to charge at me and grab the phone out of my pockets, but I backed away because she has mistreated me in the past, and I did not want it to happen again. And when she realized I wasn't handing it over, she decided to call the cops again. When the cops arrived, they said to hand it over to avoid conflict and that I'll just get it back on Sunday. And I agreed to avoid conflict. Plus, I knew this was a waste of all of their time. I don't want to be around my mom because of her narcissistic personality, and she's very manipulative and mentally awful towards me. All of her relatives have either called me a disappointment or have said that my dead relatives are disappointed in me. So this is all seriously exhausting and I just don't know what to do. First of all, I'm so sorry that your mom's treating you that way. Literally, it's just a phone. It sounds like you're old enough to be responsible with it, so the fact that she's like, no, I don't want that in my house, that's not only really weird, but also really suspicious. Like, why would she be so upset about you having a phone on your person? Because the only reason why she wouldn't like that I can think of is that maybe you would use that phone to record her in secret and like possibly have evidence as to how your mom actually treats you at home. Because from the sounds of it, she sounds super controlling. She literally searches your bags whenever you come to her house. Like, that is crazy in my opinion, and it is completely inappropriate. And the fact that she called the cops on you twice all because you had a phone at her house, like, that is really weird, and there's just no reason for that. Because I'm right there with your stepmom, your dad, and your therapist. I think there's nothing wrong with you having a phone on you, and I think if you're responsible about it, it's a good thing to have just in case you need it. Like, if she wants to put parental controls on the phone or something like that, I don't think that would be unreasonable in the slightest. Like, that really would make sense to me, and it would be completely reasonable. But for her to take this weird stance of like outlawing the phone that your dad bought you, all for some unknown weird reason, is just really strange in my opinion. So I really hope this is able to work out for you, and I'm so sorry your mom is treating you this way, because it is absolutely insane for your mom to call the cops on you, all because you brought your phone over to your mom's house. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen tries to make a return at my store, despite the fact that she's trying to get money back on an item we don't even sell, even going as far as demanding a manager, as she was tired of hearing what I had to say. Here's what happened. So I was a supervisor at an electronics store a few years ago. Now please note, I said electronics, meaning that all we sold were PCs, games, phones, TVs, and appliances. This is a big US chain store, and you can probably guess where it is. Now this was a fairly busy Saturday afternoon. Part of the job was standing up front and greeting customers and pointing them in the right direction. That is, if I wasn't busy ringing out a customer. But I had a few associates ringing people out since it was busy. Well, this 50-year-old woman walks in with a paper bag in hand. And this is one of those flat paper bags that some clothing stores use for purchases. I ask her if she needed anything, and she says that she has a return. And this is really not surprising since people often bring things back in random bags and boxes sometimes. And since everybody else was busy, I point her to the free register and I tell her that I will take her over there. Once we get over there, I ask for the bag to get out whatever is in the bag. And instead, she pulls out a pair of jeans. Now, to say I was perplexed is an understatement. For a split second, I thought maybe there was something wrapped inside the pants. But no, it's just a pair of jeans. In fact, she is trying to hand me jeans and jeans only. Now, I didn't take them out of her hands, but I did ask her, what is this for? She looked at me and said, I need to return them. They don't fit. I responded by saying, I can't return this. We don't sell clothing. This is not our merchandise. The entitled Karen looked at me and said, what? What do you mean? I've done this before. Now, knowing that this was a lie, I needed to make sure that I responded in kind. I said to her, I have worked here for 5 years. I assure you that we definitely don't. You must have a receipt for returns, and we don't do returns for merchandise we don't carry. When this entitled Karen heard this, she did not like that. She stomped her foot and said, I have done this before. I have brought in tons of Amazon returns before. Where is your manager? I tell her that I am a supervisor, but I then tell her that my general manager will tell you the exact same thing. Our store doesn't carry any clothing. It never has. We don't do returns for merchandise we don't sell, and we definitely don't do Amazon returns. At this point, she starts looking around. People are staring at her holding her jeans, and it's then that she looks behind me at a giant wall, which says both the company name as well as our tech repair service. And there are even people who are waiting on PC repairs that are giving her the side eye. Well, slowly but surely, it finally clicks. And I swear, I could smell burning rubber as she tried to comprehend where she was. She looks at me and says, is this not Staples? I look at her and I say, no, you're literally standing in a different store. That's why there's a giant blue wall behind me that says the name of the store. She then asks me, well, wasn't this a Staples before? But I just say, no, this store has been here for almost 20 years. And before that was a hardware store that got torn down. Now, to this lady's credit, she began apologizing profusely. And I told her that Staples was a mile away and it had a massive red logo. But even after all these years, I'm still blown away by how adamant this entitled Karen girlfriend was acting. Yeah, it is always so frustrating when someone acts so indignant about something that they are completely wrong about. If she had just opened her eyes and looked around at the electronics store she was very clearly standing in, then she would see that not only is this not Staples, but she's also in the wrong place. And honestly, if she had just been a bit kinder, she probably could have figured that out much sooner than later. An entitled jerk demands that he be allowed in our store early, as he thinks that we should be open at 8 o'clock, despite the fact that our store opens at 10 o'clock. Here's what happened. So I work for a very large music retailer in Canada. I work as the store's shipper and receiver, so I'm always the first one at the store, and thankfully I don't have to deal with any customers. I usually show up at around 8 o'clock, I start working at 8:30, and the store opens at 10. My office has a door that opens into the parking lot and our little loading bay, and I like to keep the door open to let some light and fresh air in. Occasionally, I do get some people trying to come in and talk to me, or they're just trying to return stuff through my door, but I always politely tell them where the actual store entrance is. Now, just a few days ago, I start my usual routine of putting on a YouTube video while starting my day. At around 9 a.m., I notice that there's a big Jeep parked in the parking lot, and there's two people who get out and head right for me. Now, the first person asked if he can come in through my door, and I tell him that we're actually not open for another hour. Now, I could see the confusion and anger begin to bubble up on his face as he looks at me and says, "No, you're open at 8. But I reiterate that we are in fact open at 10. But he just isn't taking this as an answer. He insists that we should be open right now. But I tell him that we open up at 10 o'clock every day except for Sundays, which is at noon instead. This guy huffs and puffs and pulls out his phone, muttering to himself that he clearly checked and was sure it said 8 o'clock. 15 seconds later, his face sinks with disappointment and even more anger as he realized that he messed up. But of course, instead of conceding he made a mistake, he says to me, "Well, that's stupid. You should be open at 8 o'clock. Can you just let me grab my gear?" I tell him that since I'm just a shipper, I don't do any customer transactions, and that no one else is here yet, so he will just have to wait. The other gentleman steps in, and he was very polite and understanding, but the first guy was fighting the urge to tantrum right out of there into the parking lot. Eventually, they left and came back at 10 o'clock just like everybody else would, and I thankfully got to sit in the back and not have to deal with any of that guy's entitled nonsense. Yeah, that's a really annoying way to act. I'm pretty sure somebody who works at the store you're trying to get into would know exactly when you're supposed to open up the store. Instead of being like a normal human being and saying something like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you opened up at 8 o'clock, my bad." This guy not only pulls his phone out to prove himself wrong, but then complains to this guy as if it's his fault that they don't open at 8, but then still complains that he should be allowed to go in there and get the gear that he needs. And I will honestly never understand that level of entitlement. Seriously, just wait until 10 o'clock and get it like everybody else. You can even form a line at the front of the store if you really want to do that. But to sit there and berate the guy who has nothing to do with any of that is just really weird in my opinion. Because the original poster was just sitting there doing their job, and they definitely did not deserve to be talked to like that. Am I the jerk for snoozing a stranger's phone alarm that was going off in my ear while I was trying to watch a play? Because right now my mom is furious with me, and at this point I don't know what to do. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I was at a dinner in a show theater with my family and friends this past Christmas. I had invited everyone to come along as I had the opportunity to work on some of the costumes for the show that night. We were sat at a big table by the stage. The seating for the theater is all tables and chairs, and there are 3 levels of floor space for the tables that descend as you get closer to the stage. I was sitting at the back of our table, so my head was level with the table on the level above us. The food is served buffet style, and the play starts after dessert has been served. As we were starting to eat our food, an alarm started to go off next to my ear. The couple sitting at the table above me was away getting their food, and I waited for maybe 2 minutes, but it was so loud, and it was positioned so that it was blaring right at me. I saw that the phone was an iPhone, so I tapped the little snooze button so that the alarm would stop. That way, myself and everybody else around us wouldn't have to keep hearing the stupid alarm. I planned on telling the couple what happened as soon as they returned with their food, as I assumed that it was some kind of simple reminder. When I did this, my mom, who was at the other end of the table, was completely astonished, and she decided to scold me harshly for touching someone else's possession. I tried to say that I only snoozed their alarm and that it had been blaring in my ear, but she told me that it's never acceptable to handle something that I know belongs to someone else. She said to me, "Well, what if that alarm was for an important medication?" I replied by saying I only snoozed it, and I'm going to let them know as soon as they return. But she continued to scold me in front of my friends and my future sister-in-law for my supposed behavior. When the people returned, I told them what I had done, politely apologized for snoozing the alarm, and they thanked me and apologized as well myself for leaving the phone on the table. They didn't seem upset at all that I touched the phone. This incident has come up a few times in conversation ever since. My mom will not back down or even apologize to me for scolding me and embarrassing me in front of my friends and family. Most people that I've told are on my side, but some agree with my mom that it's never appropriate to touch someone else's property without permission. I really feel that because the phone was causing a significant disturbance to me, it was okay to snooze the alarm, but maybe I'm wrong. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, because the environment that you're literally sitting in says that you should absolutely put your phone on silent. There is nothing more obnoxious than going to a movie theater or going to see a play and someone's phone just goes off all of a sudden. Like seriously, show some kind of like theater etiquette and turn that crap off. But even beyond that, it's crazy to me that your mom is still upset about this, even after you and this other couple apologized for the phone incident, and they didn't even seem upset that you touched their phone. Like seriously, what is going on? She's choosing to be upset about a non-issue. Literally nothing bad came of this situation other than your mom being upset about something that could have happened. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and this is such a benign scenario for your mom to be so upset about. My mom is acting incredibly entitled and has been treating me very poorly ever since I came into a bit of money, and I feel like I'm at such a loss and I now just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female, and in December I got a total hip replacement. My mom, who's 62, stayed with me for about 5 weeks as she was helping me with my 7-year-old son. The plan was for her to come and do washing, take my son to school a couple of times a week, and make food and tidy up the house for a bit. When she was here, my son spent half the time, if not a bit more, at his dad's house, so he wasn't here as much as he usually is. Plus, he was off for 2 weeks over Christmas, so she didn't want to take him anywhere. The first 2 weeks, we got takeaway food 4 times a week because she literally just didn't want to cook, and I paid for 80% of these, even though I didn't always eat it because the meds made me feel sick. I paid for all but one food shopping trip, but she went and got it, or I got it delivered. After 2 weeks, I was doing my own lunches because she was going home or going to work for a few hours a day often, and was usually taking some clothing to wash with her. I gave her $50 a month to go towards gas for taking my son to school and back, as well as the gas needed to take me to a couple of hospital visits for about 4 months. I thanked her a lot, and I thanked her on Facebook a few times, and I thought that was enough, but she does not. I recently came into a bit of money, and she's asking me where her gift is. I said before that I'll take the 3 of us away, but it was going to be about $1,000, but she said that she didn't want to. Now she's saying, you could have at least given me a card and some flowers and a gift, and you never gave me the $50 a month at all. You said you'll take me away, but now you're not gonna do it. And just so we're clear, I have bank records that basically say that yes, I did give her that money, plus a lot more than that in the first place. I feel like I did enough, and as a mother myself, I wouldn't dream of helping my son through a life-changing procedure and then start demanding gifts and all this other stuff. I would do it because I'm his mother. She's always been funny with money. She knows when I get paid, so as soon as I do, she's always asking to borrow my money and doesn't always pay me back. And she makes snarky comments whenever I do have spare money or not wanting to spend it, and I think that might be clouding my judgment. If I'm in the wrong, I'll own it, but I just don't see how I am because right now I really don't know what to do. You didn't do anything wrong. It sounds like your mom is just a complete leech. She's literally demanding a gift as well as a vacation of some kind, all because you came into a bit of money. And it's not like you didn't thank her repeatedly online and in person. You clearly expressed your gratitude for her helping you out in your time of need, and you made it very clear to her that yes, her contribution made a big impact in your life. And that, in my opinion, is the part that bothers me the most. She's trying to claim that you didn't compensate her enough for all the things that she did for you. It's almost like she's forgetting the entire reason she was at your house in the first place. Like you weren't there by choice, you had a total hip replacement. That is a serious surgery, and from what I understand, it can really take it out of somebody. The recovery process for that can be so long and so taxing. So for her to sit there and be like, oh wow, I can't believe that you're not giving me more. You should have given me a card or some flowers or some kind of gift. Like that is so entitled, it's not even funny. So no, you didn't do anything wrong because I think that your mom is being super toxic. Did I overreact with my longtime girlfriend after I caught her sending steamy pictures to a coworker? Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been together for over 11 years, and we have 2 kids together, and we're recently having the wedding chat. Now, the reason why we aren't married yet is because she has a huge problem, and that problem is an addiction to male attention. I don't know where it stems from, but it's gotten to the point where I simply cannot take it anymore. She started a new job 6 months ago working at a bar, and she loves it, and they've accepted me as one of the group when we have lock-ins. There is this one guy guy that works with her. We'll call him Steve for the sake of the story. And Steve is set to be married in a couple of months and is working 2 jobs to pay for the wedding. He and my girlfriend get along great, and there's no worries in my eyes with the current situation, but how wrong can I be? So she was led in bed the other night with our daughter, who was led beside her. My daughter says, "Who are you texting, mommy?" And my girlfriend suddenly shuts her down and says, "I'm not texting, I'm reading." And when I heard that, alarm bells start ringing, and I'm thinking to myself, oh God, not again. It's been 2 years since the last incident. This can't be happening again. Now, I shouldn't have, but I asked my daughter in the morning what she saw. She said that she saw mommy texting and quickly changed the screen when asked who she is texting. I had a talk with my girlfriend the next day, saying that if something is happening, please just let me know, because we know she has a problem, and usually we can sort it out before it escalates. She says it's nothing, and that it's just work chat, since she sorts the rotations and other things with the employees. I knew that wasn't the case in my gut, and I decided to check her phone as she was sleeping. Now, they had been chatting non-work related matters, but nothing too out of the ordinary. But when I looked through the recent images, and in the WhatsApp folder, right there in front of me were some indecent images that were sent and received. So I confronted her and Steve is apologizing profusely, saying that nothing physical ever happened with my girlfriend, and that they were just being flirty over text messaging, and that it definitely shouldn't have happened. Now, I can expect that from my girlfriend, but not from a guy who's about to get married and someone who I'm friends with. So I told him to quit his job before I let his fiance know what was going on and that he needs to stop all contact. The next morning, which is today, I decided to kick her out of my life for good. And I did this because I don't think she will ever heal or stop these childish ways. So am I overreacting with Steve when I made him quit his job? Or even when I said that I would find his fiance and tell her myself? I know I'm not overreacting with my ex, since I think she belongs to the street ever since she started the whole thing and baited him from looking at the exchanges. What should I do? I don't think you overreacted at all. Steve is a scumbag, and so is your ex-girlfriend. For starters, in my opinion, the first time this happened would have been the last time this happened. If I was in your shoes, I would not have stuck with this lady, and I would have kicked her to the curb and said, absolutely not, I don't think so. Like, you guys have kids together. How can she seriously go about doing that at the expense of your family? And for Steve to go along with this in some kind of way is just so toxic. So no, you did not overreact with either of them, because in my opinion, I think that these people are absolute trash. My entitled toxic neighbors have been having secret pool parties at my home for years anytime my family and I go out of town, and I'm honestly completely blown away by this behavior, and now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So a few years ago, my husband and I purchased a house with a pool. Now, we are acquainted with most of our neighbors, but definitely not close friends with any of them. They all seem nice, but we just don't have much in common other than where we live. Next door to the right is a family of 6. They have twin daughters attending the local university, a high school age son, and a young elementary school age daughter, maybe in her first or second year, and then also their parents. Now, normally we open the pool in early May and leave it open until the end of October, but this year our weather was off, and we had a very cool and wet month of May, and then June went straight to the 100s in terms of temperature. I am currently on medication that makes it difficult for me to tolerate being in the sun and the heat for extended time. Plus, we have been helping 2 extended family members who are having some health issues of their own. So because of this, we haven't had our pool opened up yet this year. Now, normally we go to the family lake house for a week during each of the 3 major holidays, but we didn't go for Memorial Day because there was flooding around the lake this year, and because a family member was just discharged from the hospital yesterday, and with the 4th of July being on a Thursday this year, we decided to stay home this week and be available to help this family member. Now, several times in June, the little girl next door has seen either my husband or myself outside, and she has asked when we are opening up the pool. We first told her maybe later, but yesterday when she asked, and I said that we were probably just not going to open it up this year, she started to cry. Now, we have never had any of the neighbors over to use our pool, so I didn't understand why she was crying over us not opening up our pool. Well, I spoke to the neighbor on the left later on, and apparently our neighbors on the right have been having a small family party at our pool every single 4th of July that we are gone. They have also cleaned up really well afterwards, and because we have scheduled pool maintenance and weekly yard service, occasionally things are moved around in our yard, and we never thought much about it. The neighbor on the left thought that we had given our neighbors permission to use our pool, and while we did give them permission to retrieve any balls or toys that end up in our backyard, we have never given them permission to use our pool, especially when we are not home. We have a special latch on the gate, and my husband did show the neighbor how to open the gate to retrieve kids' toys. So now, my husband, who loves gadgets, is going to have several several more cameras installed around the exterior of our house, covering the gate and the pool area. And we're now having the gate latch made where we can grant remote access for the pool service and the yardmen. Luckily, we have a friend who does cameras and home automation systems, so we'll thankfully have that covered. Now, I'm annoyed that our neighbors have been using our pool without our permission, but my husband is happy that I'm letting him get more gadgets around the house. So the question is, do we now confront the neighbors and let them know that we know they've been using our pool, or just wait and see if they say anything about our new security cameras? Because either way, I am incredibly frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster actually provided us an update. Here's what they had to say. Okay, a few things I want to clarify. Yes, our backyard is fully fenced in with 2 gates. One in the back is double locked from the inside. The side gate on the side of our garage nearest the neighbors in question has a double latch that you have to reach over the top and find not 1 but 2 releases to open the gate. There's also an auto close that automatically closes the gate and latches it, and I personally can't open the gate from the outside of the fence because I can't reach over that far to reach the 2 latches. The previous owners put this in, and it has worked well for our yard crew and the pool maintenance people. We do have some cameras and a doorbell camera, as well as a camera over our garage area. The garage camera picks up if someone goes towards the gate from the front, but we didn't want to invade our neighbor's privacy by recording their side garage and the gate to their backyard. We even share the camera angle with them because we didn't want them to be concerned about us recording their children or their comings and goings. I guess we were more concerned about their privacy than they were about ours. Now, on Thursday, July 4th in the morning, I was loading a few things in my vehicle to take to my cousin who had just got out of the hospital. Now, my neighbor, who has been gone a lot for work recently, saw me and came over and asked if I was getting a late start going to the lake. I let him know that we were staying home because we were helping my cousin who just got out of the hospital. He asked me if we were going to be home all weekend, and I said yes. One or both of us is going to be around all weekend. He quickly wished me a happy 4th of July, and then he went home. So I went back inside to grab my purse, and I told my husband about the conversation with the neighbor before I left. When I got home, our friend Mike was also there. Mike is not his real name. Mike does security cameras and home automation systems, and my husband absolutely loves this stuff. Mike and my husband have a plan for multiple cameras and several gadgets, some of which involve us going ahead and having the pool opened. I agreed to all but one of the new cameras and almost all of the gadgets, and I think my husband put some of these in the plan, knowing that he would have to give up a few of them. Mike also suggested talking to our homeowner's insurance agent because we might be able to get some discounts with the security upgrades. So on Friday, our insurance guy, who we will call Tom, comes over while Mike is there, and he has a drone to help him find the best camera positions. So my husband, Mike, and Tom are outside and all around the house and occasionally inside. I look outside every so often, and at different times, other neighbors have come outside and down to our end of the street. Eventually, our neighbors want to know what is going on, so my husband tells them that we are concerned that someone or several people may have used our pool without our permission while we were not home. It turns out that 2 different neighbors had witnessed some friends of the neighbor's children come over last year, and they and the neighbor's twins had gone into our backyard. One neighbor even asked the girls, and they claimed that we let them come over all the time and use our pool. So at this point, my husband and Tom discussed this, and Tom says that we should send a registered letter to the neighbors, rescinding any permission we gave them from entering our fenced-in backyard. So before Mike and Tom left, the neighbors on the right, who are the pool party neighbors, come over to our house. My husband asked to talk with them, and with Mike and Tom as witnesses, he tells them that for insurance reasons, we are rescinding our permission for them or any other family member of theirs to ever enter our fenced-in backyard ever again. And we will be sending a registered letter stating this as requested by our insurance. Now, my husband never accused them or the children of using our pool, but said that we had reason to believe that in the past, our pool had been used without our permission. But he did say that he had reason to believe that their older children might be friends with someone who has been in our pool. My husband also told them that we are changing the gates to have an automated lock, and we're having cameras installed around the pool area. He also assured them that we avoid the cameras pointed at their windows or their backyard, while also indicating that we are taking these measures to hopefully lower our homeowners' insurance rates. My husband said that they exchanged a few looks between them, but they said they understood and appreciated the heads up. So hopefully these jerks never come back to our pool ever again, because the fact they did this in the first place is so unacceptable. Yeah, I can't believe that someone would actually trespass on another person's property and be like, oh wow, they're gone for the weekend. Let's have a party without their permission. Like seriously, what were these neighbors thinking? Like, what if they damaged the original poster's property in some kind of way? What if one of their kids got injured or like possibly drowned in that pool while nobody was home? This really could have been so bad it's not even funny. So truly, good for the original poster for putting their foot down, especially in such a roundabout way, because those neighbors absolutely know that they are guilty of this crime, and hopefully they never come back to your house ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to cancel a $500 VIP ticket, knowing that my parents would not allow it? Because right now they're very angry with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I'm a 20-year-old female, and I bought a VIP ticket in May for a concert in the end of July that was close to $500. I had worked very hard that month to be able to pay for it, but I did not consult my parents before making this decision. My parents are very conservative and they're very Christian. Now, this whole scenario is on the back of me being upset for not being allowed to go to a concert with some friends the day that we hit a deer, and them not liking that I would not shut up about being upset, and letting them know I was not happy with dealing with consequences for something that did not harm us, while also connecting to an argument that was pretty much settled between me and my parents. Now, I was planning on telling them in July on my birthday so that they would likely just let me go, but unfortunately, they checked my bank statements and they saw the payment before I could tell them myself. These disagreements have caused a lot of tension, and we are getting more on edge the closer the concert gets. My sister, who's 22, and my brother, who's 14, have said that they understand that I will not cancel the ticket, but that I went about it the wrong way, and I should have told my parents before I bought it, especially knowing how they are. My parents, ever since they found out about the ticket, have been on my back about canceling it, and say that I am humiliating, disrespecting, and undermining their authority as parents for saying that I will not cancel the ticket. They have lectured me multiple times on this, and seem to not like that I also give them my opinions on the matter when I should just obey what they say as they are my parents, and I should just be obedient as the Bible says to honor your father and your mother. These last couple of weeks have been really hard, as now that my parents are sort of excluding me, my siblings have had to step up and try to fill in with what I would usually do around the house, and this includes our chores or any business that my parents might need to take care of. My siblings are quieter than they have been, and my parents are more upset than usual with us, which has us walking on eggshells. From my parents' viewpoint, they have said that as my parents, they deserve to know any decisions that I make, and that me not consulting them was not right. They're upset that I did not communicate with them, and that I'm not obeying their world, when as Christians we should not be associating with these worldly activities. They have let me know that I am hurting their feelings by not understanding that me going is putting me in danger, and it's causing me to sin, that they are only looking out for me, and they don't want me to go down a path that could damage my well-being. So am I the jerk for refusing to cancel my ticket? Because right now I'm very confused and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk here. You're 20 years old and you're buying your own concert ticket. Like, this is literally none of your parents' business in the first place. And the fact that they would try to use their religion as some form of control, which is all this actually is, in my opinion, is super toxic. They're not trying to protect you from sin, they're trying to control your life. And last I checked, you're an adult and you could do whatever you want with your life. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. And if anything, I think it's maybe time to save up your money and move out, because the way your parents are acting is completely insane. Am I overreacting for not wanting my in-laws in my house after they've made things really tricky for me, my kids, and my husband? Because right now I'm very frustrated, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my in-laws live about 8 hours away, and when they come to visit, they stay for a week or so. And to make a long story short, my wife and I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. My father-in-law has his concealed carry permit and has OCD about carrying his weapon at all times or just having it near him. He carries it in a makeshift holster around his stomach, which makes us very uncomfortable around the kids. He initially lied when we asked him if he brought it with him during our last visit. My wife told him that she wants him to put it in our safe, and he refused but stated that he would put it in the car. But here's the thing, he does not take any of my wife's requests seriously ever. He always talks about how there are too many rules. Now, when it comes to my mother-in-law, she visited about 6 months ago and left a half-smoked stump of herb, if you know what I mean, right under a couch in our back room. And the only reason we found it was because my dog was scratching. My kids are like little vacuums and they could have easily gotten that. Now, my wife did address this, but my mother-in-law gaslit her because she is a narcissist and instantly became the victim. Fast forward to this week. I'm sitting on the floor with my 1-year-old son, and as he's crawling, he picks up a pink object off the floor by our kids' table and almost puts it in his mouth. I go to see what it is before he does so, and my mother-in-law snatches it real quick. And I just know it was a vape pen. My wife asked her what it was, and she stated that it was a pill dispenser. Now, we knew she was lying, but we let it go for the moment. My wife addressed these problems with her mother and father while I was at work, and it turned into an absolute nightmare. They twisted everything back on us, and how we don't make them feel welcome with all the rules and that they just can't do anything right. So am I overreacting for not wanting my in-laws to visit if they're just gonna bring stuff that could be harmful to my kids? They seem to think that everything is a big joke and refuse to apologize, but we would be the ones explaining to protective services why my 1-year-old got injured because of my in-laws. What should we do? No, you're not overreacting at all, and honestly, the fact that they can't follow your house rules is really concerning. Like seriously, this is an easy solution. If you want to visit and be around my kids, you have to abide by our rules. It's not a joke and it's not optional. And if you lie just to get around these rules, then they should never be allowed back in the house ever again. Like in my opinion, I don't even know why you're entertaining this conversation in the first place, because this is seriously just non-negotiable. Either they follow the rules or they're not welcome back in your house. And it's so funny how they're trying to gaslight you and twist this against you as if you're the problem instead of this awful behavior that they're exhibiting. This is completely unfair for you, your husband, and your kids. And in my opinion, if they can't follow the rules, then they should not be welcome back into your house. An entitled Karen throws a fit towards me and my manager after she's unable to make a return for an item she purchased, all because our system was down. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with people like this that I'm so glad I don't work at this job any longer. Here's what happened. So this happened over a year ago, and this was one of my worst experiences with an entitled customer during my time in retail. In March of 2023, at the retail chain I used to work at, there was a data breach that happened on a corporate level. So the point of sale system was not allowing returns and exchanges. Also, certain cards couldn't be used in purchases, and employees couldn't clock in or out. This problem lasted for about a month and was an issue for every store nationwide. Naturally, customers voiced their frustrations, and unfortunately, it was out of our control. So we would offer discounts and we would just extend the return date. Now, when this problem was fairly new, an older woman came in trying to return an item. So me and another manager explained to her that the return system was down and that we didn't know when the issue would be fixed. When we said that, she started getting combative, saying that she needs to make the return today as she came in a taxi. She also wasn't understanding that this is an issue beyond our control. Even after we stated that this is a nationwide issue, she kept saying, "Why didn't you tell me I can't return this?" And my manager was explaining how she's not intentionally denying her service and reiterating how this was all out of our control. The woman came up to me and continued making a fuss, and I was trying to calm her down, saying, "Okay, I understand your frustration," but she just kept saying, "No, you don't understand." But every single time, I would attempt to explain the situation and tell her that we are not purposefully trying to screw her over. It got to a point where my manager had to call up another manager to explain the deal, as this woman would not let up. She was still throwing a fit in hopes that she would get her way, even though we already explained that we literally can't process a return due to the issue being out of our control. While waiting on the other manager to come up, the manager I was with pulled her aside to show her other sizes of the item that she was trying to return, and that seemed to help her calm down just a little bit. But when the other manager came up, she was not chill anymore, and she was still not understanding that the point of sale system having issues was completely out of our control, and she was demanding a firm date on when to come back, even though we literally didn't know when the issue would be resolved. Eventually, the other manager who got called up just told her to come back exactly 30 days from the date of the purchase, just so she would stop throwing a fit and stop being combative. And thankfully, that finally made her stop. Another thing to note is that the first manager saw that she had car keys in her purse, so we figured that she made up that part about having a taxi just to get some kind of sympathy. Naturally, a lot of customers were frustrated about returns and exchanges being down, and we had all customers direct their frustration at us, but for the others, it was not to the extent of this woman, as she was refusing to understand the situation and thought that throwing a fit would get her way in this scenario by wearing us down. But I'm honestly so glad I don't work this job anymore, because I cannot stand people who act this way. Yeah, that person was clearly trying to play the tactic of like, oh, if I get upset enough, I will get my way eventually, right? But that's obviously not going to happen because their system is down. And if she would simply listen to what these people are trying to tell her, she could have known that from the beginning. I can't stand when customers act like this towards like retail workers, because I've been there and I've done that when it comes to getting yelled at by a customer, and it really sucks. Like, it shakes you you up, it really pisses you off, and yet you're the one that's expected to be composed while they freak out like a toddler. So I think it's ridiculous, and I think the power imbalance is so unfair because it leaves the worker on the hook for whatever this stupid lady's yelling about. But I think on that note, the original poster handled this really well. They were composed, they were calm, and they didn't let this stupid Karen get under their skin. Because unfortunately, at the end of the day, when it comes to customer service and dealing with people who act this way, staying calm and collected really is your best course of action in most cases. And in this scenario, I think the original poster handled all of this perfectly. Am I the jerk for not wanting to move into my parents' basement because right now they think I'm making a massive mistake and they are refusing to take no for an answer? Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old male going on 23, and I'm in my 5th year of undergrad, and my family likes to do long vacations every summer in their camper. They were traveling all summer and we met up with them, and from the moment that we did end up meeting up with them, my dad especially has not talked to me or been very nice to me at all. He had his own share of stuff that happened on the trip with his truck, which is what I initially thought the issue was. After a few nights, my mom brought up how they wanted to renovate their basement into a 1-bedroom apartment, partly so I can move in without rent, and partly to raise the value of their house. This year, I had many problems with apartments, having to move 3 times because of roommates, ex-girlfriends, or landlord issues, which led to my parents trying to convince me that it would be best for me to move into their basement. With my financial issues, they pitched it as a way for me to save money and to lower my stress. My brother has been following every piece of advice they gave him, and he is obviously favored because of this, on top of his major being one that will start higher than I will probably ever end up with. I also had gotten caught smoking the herb a few years ago, which I still do and I don't tell them about, but I feel like if I tell them anything about my life, it's always immediately followed by advice I didn't ask for or an opinion that I didn't want to hear about. I told my family that I didn't want to move into their basement because of the amount of fighting that happens whenever we live together, on top of me wanting to live independently, as I feel like I've always been reliant on my parents and that I've always lived in their shadows. For reference, my dad was a high school science teacher, so I never felt like I was able to fully define who I was in school because of that. Well, long story short, my parents think that I'm being stupid for not doing the more financially smart thing and moving back in with them when I have a full-time job as a manager of a restaurant on top of going to school. It is stressful, but not as bad for my mental health as me living with them full-time. I am in a bit of credit card debt, but it's nothing that a few months of work couldn't fix. Now, I just feel like no matter what I say to them, I will be the jerk of the family for not taking their charity when I just want to live my own life and figure out who I am outside of them. They still do things like track my phone and refuse to let me have my own bank account and are still trying to pay for my school, but I feel like no matter what I do from here, I will be the jerk if I don't follow their advice. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, you need to get them off your phone and you need to get your own bank account. You are almost 23 years old. There is no reason they should have access to either of those things. Like, this is not okay. That should have stopped like, what, 5-6 years ago, if not sooner than that? And just for the sake of your own privacy, you definitely should have your own bank account. That especially is a massive breach of trust and privacy, and there's no way on earth I would allow them to have any access to that ever. Like, you're already living on your own and you're paying your own bills, so why are you trying to let them run your life? Like, if you don't want to move into their house, then don't move into it. You're not obligated to live there, especially if that's not like the best living environment. So no, you are not the jerk for not wanting to live there, because the way your parents are acting is completely out of line. My entitled, crazy mother demands that I give her money and even goes as far as trespassing on my property to demand that I finance her life simply because she's my mother. And after dealing with this for so long, as well as watching the effect she's had on my kids, I am seriously at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. I'm a 35-year-old female, and I am the oldest of a family with 8 other siblings, including my twin brother. Growing up, my twin and I were inseparable. We faced the chaos of a large family together, and we always had each other's backs. Despite the large family dynamic, we managed to carve out our own little world of support and understanding. Our mom, however, was a completely different story. She had a reputation for being very permissive and often neglected her responsibilities. She had multiple relationships throughout our childhood, which created a lot of instability and drama in our household. My siblings and I often felt like we had to fend for ourselves while she pursued her own interests. There were times when she would leave us with barely enough food and money, prioritizing her romantic escapades over our basic needs. Well, my twin brother and I managed to break away from the toxic environment intelligent. We both worked hard, we went to college, and eventually found success in our respective fields. I became a successful screenwriter, while my twin brother built a career in tech. And despite our chaotic upbringing, we remained close and supported each other. I met my wonderful husband who owns a successful bakery during my early career. We have 4 amazing children, and we've built a stable and loving home together. And my husband has been incredibly supportive, especially given my family's history. But our other siblings, unfortunately, were not as fortunate. Many of them struggled with finding stability and frequently leaned on our mom for support, which she could rarely provide. Instead, she continued her pattern of irresponsible behavior, often making poor financial decisions and expecting us to bail her out. A few months ago, our mom came to me asking for a significant amount of money to cover her latest financial crisis. She had gotten herself into debt yet again and expected me to help her out. I was hesitant given her track record, but I did give her some money hoping that she would use it wisely. Well, unsurprisingly, she squandered it and came back asking for more. When I refused, she became furious and started bad-mouthing me to our extended family, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who refused to help her struggling mother. My older siblings also chimed in saying that I owed it to her, all because she raised us and that family should always come first. Now, one incident that really solidified my decision was when our mom showed up at my house unannounced, literally standing there demanding money from me. My children were frightened by the commotion, and my husband had asked her to leave our property. This caused a lot of stress for our family, and I don't want to put my kids through that ever again. But thankfully, my twin brother supports my decision. He has also faced the same request from our mom and has been firm in his refusals. We both believe that our mom needs to take responsibility for her actions, and that continuously bailing her out will only enable her behavior. There have been numerous instances where my mom's actions directly impacted my family. She once showed up during my daughter's birthday party, causing a scene because I refused to give her money. She embarrassed me in front of my friends and my children's friends, and my kids were heartbroken that their special day was ruined by their grandma's outburst. On another occasion, she borrowed money from my twin brother, promising to pay him back as soon as she could. But instead, she just spent it on a lavish vacation with her latest boyfriend. When my brother confronted her, she just accused him of being selfish and not understanding her struggles. My mom also has a history of manipulating our younger siblings and making them feel obligated to support her financially. She has drained their savings and caused rift between them and their own families. So it seems like a never-ending cycle of guilt and manipulation. Despite my mom and siblings attempting to guilt trip me, I feel I need to focus on my own family's well-being. I worked hard to get where I'm at, and I don't want my mom's irresponsible behavior to jeopardize the stability and peace that we've built. My husband and I have plans for our children's futures, and we cannot afford to be derailed by my mom's constant financial problems. My extended family keeps pressuring me to help her out, saying that I owe it to her all because she raised me. But the reality is that she has only ever taken from me and never given me anything in return. My success is a result of my hard work and determination, and it has absolutely nothing to do with her support. And I need to protect my husband and my kids from this toxic behavior. So am I the jerk for refusing to help my mom financially? Because right now I am very frustrated and I really don't know what to do. Yeah, the way your mom is like demanding money and showing up to your house to get it, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Like seriously, who's gonna act like that? Especially after the upbringing that she gave you and your siblings. Like she was barely a mother at all. Your mom never stepped up when you were younger, and now that you're older, everybody's trying to guilt trip you into like funding her life? No, that's absolutely not gonna happen, and that is so inappropriate. And I think worst of all, it just really sucks that your younger siblings don't see this. They're trying to play into this weird guilt tripping situation where they're like, oh yeah, you have to help her out because she's family. But like seriously, when has she ever acted like family? So seriously, in my opinion, any financial problems that your mom is having is not suddenly your problem. Just because she's bad with money doesn't mean you have to drop everything you're doing and bail her out. Because clearly she's not good with money, and if you did continue to finance her life, then things are only gonna get worse. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk goes into a rage after he's proven wrong by both my wife and the clearly printed sign standing right in front of him. And I've honestly never been happier to watch someone freak out in my life. Here's what happened. So my wife and I went to a minor league baseball game last night for a date night, and we walked into a little bar and food stand to get some refreshments before finding our seats. Immediately upon walking in, we noticed a group or like a semi-line of people backed up around the center of the bar. Now mind you, this is about 25 1.5 feet long with 5 registers and bartenders. On either side of the middle register were very clearly printed signs stating "Do not line up, just come to a register and we will help you out." The sign also reminded patrons to smile because this is a minor league baseball park, so it's supposed to be fun and it's supposed to be a friendly environment. So my wife and I ignore this public traffic, we follow the instructions, and we make our way to the far left register and we start placing our order with a very sweet bartender. Well, immediately, a stereotypical jerk immediately comes up to us and aggressively starts complaining. He looks at us and says, we're in line." My wife, who is typically extremely non-confrontational, replied and said, "Okay, cool story, bro, but you're supposed to just walk up." When she said that, this guy went into full rage mode, and this is probably partially from being put in his place by a woman. He actually started to come at her verbally, but the bartender immediately shut him down and said cheerfully, "Sir, she is correct. You can just walk right up. In fact, I can help you both at the same time if you like." This guy then responds by saying, "But there are 2 signs saying to form a line." But the bartender says, "No, sir. The signs clearly state not to form a line and to just come up to a free register. Again, I can help you all at once. What can I get you?" Now, instead of just ordering his food, he just continues to complain that both my wife and I and the bartender were completely wrong. Well, eventually, the bartender proceeds to ignore him and just go ahead with making our drinks, saying under her breath that we did perfect. This guy's face had turned fire engine red at this point. I thought literal steam was going to come out of his ears when we carried our drinks out past him while he still hadn't ordered anything, all because he couldn't stop crying about how we were somehow incorrect. My wife then told them to enjoy the game in a very cheery tone, which truly was the chef's kiss on top of this truly awkward interaction. I love this story for a few reasons, because maybe it's just me, but I find almost a sick satisfaction in watching people who are incredibly rude and very entitled get proven wrong right in front of their face. Like, that just absolutely makes my day. So seeing this entitled jerk get so mad, only to then be proven wrong just because they can't read, in my opinion, makes this entire story completely worth it. My entitled father constantly acts like a child and refuses to respect my boundaries. And I now feel like I'm at my breaking point because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad and I are currently vacationing together with a few other family members also in tow. He is undiagnosed but very likely autistic. He's never taken the parent role but rather always plays the victim. He is obsessed with weird stuff such as car plates, flight routes, crosswords, and a lot more than just that. The older I get, the more frustrated I become with him. Because he has such a difficult time making friends, and especially interacting with women, he has developed a hatred for females and just constantly makes sly comments and remarks, and as a woman myself, it drives me nuts. He is very lonely and reliant on his mother, and it makes his hatred towards women even more contradictive. So honestly, my cup is full. Ever since I came here yesterday, he has been nagging me. He makes these awful comments saying that women should be trade wives, or women just don't know how to be consistent or make decisions. But I told him, listen, don't say that. You know I don't like it when you say that. But when I made this comment, it only made him continue, as if he enjoyed getting a reaction from me. I believe he struggles with separating the concept that yes, I am his daughter, but I'm also a woman. Later in the evening, when I was doing my workout routine, he asked me how much I weigh, insinuating that I had gained some weight. And when he said that, I was severely triggered, given that I have previously struggled with an eating disorder. I sat down and confronted him with why he was so incredibly rude to me, and he said that he had felt recently that I'm pulling away, and he wanted to punish me for this by making sly remarks. I told him this would only make our relationship worse, which he then started the discussion that I started to pull away first, and that this was a natural reaction to that. I also pointed to the fact that he does not act like a parent at all. He never opens his home to me or makes me feel at home. But then he said that I never invite him either. But I know the reality is that he wants for me to make him dinner in my home so that I can act like his caretaker and not the other way around. It's just so incredibly lazy and weird. It kind of sickens me how rude and childish he is, especially his remarks towards women. It's just really bugging me. I really don't know how to approach it further, given that I get this reaction by confronting him. He said he wanted to hang out more, but I just don't know anymore. I don't have much family left since I cut contact with my narcissistic mother, and so I think I've just given him too much benefit of the doubt up until now. He simply won't respect my boundaries, and given his reaction, I don't think that he will going forward either. What should I do? First and foremost, I totally understand where you're coming from, where you think he might be like undiagnosed autistic, but even if he was like diagnosed and confirmed to be autistic, that is not even the beginning of an excuse for acting this way and being completely sexist. There are plenty of people who are autistic and don't act this way. These comments are so so toxic and so unbecoming of someone trying to pretend to be your father. Because here he's like, oh man, I feel like you're pulling away. But it's like, are you kidding me? Of course the original poster would pull away. Why should she be expected to put up with these awful comments about women and not be offended by what he's saying? Like seriously, this guy's a complete moron. He's literally causing this divide in his relationship with his daughter, but also trying to be like, wow, you're the one that's pulling away, when he's the one that's causing the problem in the first place. Like that would drive me nuts as well, because I can't stand when people shift the blame like that. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would completely shut him down anytime he tries to make that comment again. If he's doing it for an emotional response, then I would go about this in the most benign way possible and really show him that no, you're not going to be around him if he's going to act this way. And then I would just stick to those boundaries completely and say, okay, well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore if this is how you're going to act. Because it sounds like he doesn't think there's any kind of like consequences for these comments, and maybe it's time for you to step up and show that yes, there are. Because if this is how he's going to act, then in my opinion, he deserves to be put in his place. My significant other accused me of cheating despite the fact that I'm pregnant. And even though he apologized and tried to make things right, I'm worried that the damage is already done. Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that 95% of our relationship is happy, healthy, and great. We laugh together all the time. We just moved in together a few months ago, and I am now 8 weeks pregnant. Yesterday, one of his family members, who had a mutual friend in their friend group who was married to a coworker of mine, called my boyfriend and told him that they heard I was really into illegal substances and that I was sleeping with people so I could obtain more. They also added that a man showed up at my work and was yelling at me. Well, it turns out that this all stemmed from me telling my coworkers months ago about an argument that my significant other and myself got into when I told him I did some illegal substances back in college. So then he got upset that I was someone other than who he believed I was. Either way, I was furious that a huge game of telephone ensued, and even more furious at my significant other's reaction. He immediately asked to go through my phone and insisted that I was lying to him over and over again. He even asked if the baby was even his. Now, it's important to add that I have never done anything to make him question my loyalty, but on the other hand, he has, however, accused me of falsely sneaking around 2 other times at a much smaller level, which was also a problem then, but this really takes the cake. He was cheated on in the past and admits about having issues around trust. He left the apartment yesterday and came back later only to continue to berate me and say that he doesn't know who I am anymore and that he knew it was all a front all along. His family member eventually called him back and cleared everything up and told him that he was acting crazy, but I feel like the damage was done. He half-heartedly apologized, but when I asked him to sleep on the couch, he got so mad that he punched our balcony door. He has never acted like that before, and at this point, I kind of lost it, and I told him that I don't want to be with him anymore if this is how he's going to act, and that him being mad at me being mad is completely messed up. He ended up crying and apologizing profusely, but I am at such a loss. I'm in shock and I'm numb, and I just can't decide what I should do. I feel like my faith in him is completely destroyed. He messaged me this morning and said something along the lines of, well, we both said some things that we didn't mean yesterday, and he is sorry, and he loves the baby, and he loves me too. But I just don't think he gets it. I mean, what should I do right now? Do I leave? Do I move back home to my family out of state? Do I require couples counseling? I am tired of failed relationships, and I've done couple counseling in 2 other partnerships, so I'm just tired. I don't want to be with someone I don't trust. And all of this is crazy to me. Aside from the other 2 incidents that I mentioned earlier, we genuinely have a happy and healthy relationship. But at this point, I feel so confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I can completely understand where you're coming from, because the damage in a lot of ways is already done. For starters, it seems like he jumped to some weird conclusion pretty much overnight and just automatically believed that you were cheating on him. Like, that is so awful, it's not even funny. But for him to go even farther and get mad that you got mad at him, in my opinion, shows exactly how guilty he probably feels, but it doesn't justify his behavior in the slightest. That half-hearted apology absolutely needs to be more heartfelt, because his behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and you do not deserve to be treated like this in the slightest. This next story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wanting to cut ties with my toxic family, especially after the way they treated me growing up? Because right now I'm trying to move on with my life, and I need to figure out if this is the right move. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I grew up splitting my time between my mom and dad's house. My parents split up right after I was born, and my dad started dating my stepmom when I was 3 years old. They had my brother when I was 6, and my dad and stepmom constantly fought, and it often got so bad that I would be sent to my room to pet pack in case we needed to go to my grandma's house. One day during one of their big fights, my stepmom stormed into my room and started yelling at me. She said to me, "Are you happy now? Are you happy, you stupid entitled brat? Me and your father are fighting because of you." Now, mind you, I was only 6 years old. I was constantly yelled at and blamed for their issues. As I got older, my brother became aggressive and entitled. When he was about 6 to 9 years old, he would hit and punch me, but I was told to suck it up because I was older. I would get bruises, but it was brushed off because he was 7 and I was 13, and it was so ridiculous. We had a dog when I was 12 years old, but we had to give him away because my brother mistreated him. My stepmom told people it was because I neglected him. Also, her son wasn't to blame, even though my dad and I were the ones taking care of him. I also frequently lost money that I earned from selling bracelets, only to find out that my stepmom and my brother had taken it. And we're talking hundreds of dollars at the time. My stepmom would badmouth me to my friends, and when they told me, I was forbidden from hanging out with them because they were starting drama. She also criticized my weight, saying things like, "You should lose a few pounds. In fact, I got you this outfit because it hides your stomach rolls. Us fat girls have to use them." This caused me significant insecurities, and I often found myself feeling like I didn't have a family since I was only at each house half the time. I started feeling better when I saved enough money from selling bracelets to get my own dog, who literally goes with me everywhere. My anxiety, which got so bad that I would pass out, improved after I got my dog certified as a service dog. So, given all this time, would I be the jerk if I cut ties with my stepmom and my brother? What should I do? Honestly, I don't blame you in the slightest for not wanting anything to do with them, because based on what you described, they sound like awful people. I can't imagine anybody going up to a 6-year-old kid and then screaming at them in their room and being like, "Oh yeah, our marriage problems are your fault." Like, that is so insane to me. That doesn't make any sense. And the obvious favoritism towards your younger stepbrother is just insane. So, considering everything that you've been through, as well as the way your stepmother and your brother treated you, I do not blame you in the slightest for wanting to step away from them and cut them off. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for not making a bigger deal out of my half-sister celebrating the end of my parents' marriage? Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents announced 2 months ago that they're getting divorced. Now, I did kind of see it coming, but it still makes me very sad. But my half-sister, who is older than me, has been celebrating ever since she heard about this. She cheered when our dad told her, and she has gloated in my mom's face and in mine. She told mom that she can forget about being a part of her life, or even going to her wedding now because she's engaged. My half-sister always hated that dad remarried after her mom passed away, and she said she never wanted to have my mom or me around. And she felt this way ever since she was 5 years old when this happened. She was always praying for the end of the marriage. She used to try and break them up in the past, and dad would get so mad and frustrated with her, but she never let that dream die, and now her dream has come true. The last time my mom or myself saw my half-sister was when dad was moving out, and when she stopped by briefly, she gloated so hard. This was also when she told mom that she was no longer invited to the wedding and no longer going to be part of her life. And now my mom is super upset. Despite my half-sibling's dislike of her and constant disrespect, my mom loves her, and she's sad to see it all end before they had a chance to even be friends. And my mom always wanted to be family to my half-sister. My maternal aunt saw that my sister had posted on social media that she had thrown a party, but it turned out that she was celebrating the divorce itself. My parents were upset, but I could just shrug it off because I knew she would be so happy about this, and her celebration does not surprise me at all. But my parents asked me why I'm so calm and collected about this. I told them I expected her reaction, and I always knew that she wanted this badly. They said they would expect me to be upset, but I told them that maybe if I expected something different from her, but I didn't. I pointed out that everyone in her comments knew as well. There were loads of people saying how she always called it and how glad they were that she got this win. But to me, it's just so dumb. Well, my aunt confronted me afterwards and told me I should be making a bigger deal out of it because it looks like I don't care about the weird and over-the-top reaction from my half-sister. She said that mom must feel like I don't care about her heartache at all, that it's rough to see a child that she loved and helped raise cheer on the fact that she's getting divorced from dad. So am I the jerk for not making a bigger deal out of this? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I think your aunt is completely wrong. What your stepsister is doing is completely awful, and in my opinion, it has nothing to do with you. Like, don't get me wrong, I think what your stepsister is doing is super toxic, but even still, I completely understand your reaction. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, and I don't think it's a bad idea to stop from getting roped into this, because this is already already a hard situation, and the last thing that's gonna help is another person getting involved in this kind of drama. An entitled Karen neighbor demands that I host a party as the newest neighbor in the neighborhood, claiming that this is a tradition that everybody takes part in when they move into the neighborhood, and that I have 2 weeks to schedule this party or else there will be consequences. But after dealing with this lady's crazy entitled attitude, as well as hearing awful things about her and her behavior, I decided I wasn't hosting any kind of party for anybody that I just met. And now I'm finding myself on the other end of this entitled Karen's rage. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I've just moved into a neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, and so far it's been very peaceful. From the neighbors that have come up to me, everyone has been very friendly and welcoming, which I really appreciate since I'm not from around this town. I have noticed that some neighbors have been having frequent parties the last couple of weeks, but I chalked it up to being some kind of celebration since I know that one neighbor's daughter just graduated high school and July 4th is coming up. I have been to some of these parties to get to know the other neighbors better, and one person who really stands out to me is this one neighbor who we will call Melinda. At a neighbor's party, she came up to me and introduced herself, and we talked for a while, and this is when I learned about the newest neighbor party. Apparently, the newest neighbor is supposed to throw a grand party, showing off their home and entertaining the neighborhood as a whole thing. Melinda told me that since I was the newest neighbor, it was my duty to do so. Now, I thought that Melinda was joking when she told me this, as it really didn't make sense to me, so I just kind of laughed. But when I did this seemed to have made Melinda a little angry, as she said she was serious, and it was a tradition in the neighborhood, and that I had 2 weeks to host a party. Now, this was 2 weeks ago, and yesterday was the day I was supposed to do this tradition, but I happily stayed in bed. Melinda and a couple neighbors came and rang on the doorbell, but I just ignored them and binge-watched some TV shows. I decided to go out today, and Melinda came up to me furious, saying that I didn't do the tradition and that I was a bad neighbor. Now, the thing is, however, I asked some other people about this supposed tradition, and they have heard that some people do it, but mostly never really mention it to be a reoccurring thing that each new person in the neighborhood should do. I told Melinda that I would not be throwing a party anytime soon, as I didn't feel comfortable with the thought of people coming into my home, let alone with me having to entertain them. When I said this, Melinda actually got angry with me, saying that the neighborhood is like a big family, and then she stormed off in a rage. Now, I just let this go, but the neighbors that were with Melinda at my house that night have been telling me that I should have just done the party and that I'm leaving a bad first impression. Now, I think my reasoning is completely justified, but right now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk for not entertaining these people, because right now I really don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to this story. Here's what they had to say. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank everybody for the comments and the suggestions. I see now that I could have told Melinda that I wasn't comfortable, but from the 1 or 2 interactions that I've had with her, it sounds like she would not have cared regardless, but I don't want to assume. A lot of suggestions were very insightful and funny, and after I posted this, I went to sleep and decided to go out today. I didn't bump into Melinda or any of her friends, so I'm not sure about her. However, some neighbors have offered to help me continue to move in by bringing boxes in. One of these neighbors, who we will call John, has been living here for a while, and he told me he is not fond of Melinda, and from what he has seen, some neighbors either try to avoid her or just put up with her for the sake of it. But unfortunately, I eventually did have my own interaction with Melinda. Fast forward just a little bit, and Melinda came up to me. I thought that since she didn't bother me the other day, today might be the same, but it wasn't. I got out of my car and I saw Melinda ringing my doorbell like crazy and knocking really hard. So I went up to her and I asked her what she was doing. And when she looked at me, she looked really angry and demanded an apology. But I asked her, wait, an apology for what? And she said to me, "You're going around asking people about the tradition. If you really feel so highly about it, then you should just do it like everybody else has." And right about now, I really think she is crazy. I then told her to get off my property and to leave me alone. And I just left her outside because I didn't want to deal with her, but I heard something fall outside, and when I go to check a few minutes later, she actually kicked one of my plants over. Now, fast forward another day, and it was the 4th of July, and everyone was having a big gathering in the street like a block party. I went to the store to get things for it, such as hot dogs and burgers and some snacks for kids and adults, because I couldn't cook anything personally. And the party itself is still happening as I'm writing this from the bathroom. We had all our stuff labeled so that everyone knew who to thank, and the party was going well until I see Melinda at my area of food, and I see her breaking some of it open. And normally I would be fine with this if there wasn't already hot dogs and hamburgers from other neighbors already being cooked, but the fact that she skipped over about 3 other people's stuff off just to open it is honestly so bothersome. I went to her and I asked her what she was doing, and I guess she didn't expect to see me because she started going on this huge rant about me getting the wrong brand of hot dogs and stuff like that, and how I need to think about the neighborhood. Now, before I could say anything, she just walked off, and luckily, a neighbor saw my stuff open and offered to take it and put it in the freezer until it's needed. And right now, I'm currently in my house typing up all of this. I feel like I'm in some kind of weird TV show. This personal vendetta stuff is weird and very annoying, and the fact that it's over some home welcoming party that I never agreed to is honestly completely insane. Okay, this is hilarious to me and incredibly weird. For starters, you can't just force someone to have a party that they never agreed to. Like, that is not gonna happen, and that's not okay. But secondly, the fact that she would go around and be like, oh, I demand an apology, after she literally tried to force you to have a party, in my opinion, is so crazy. Because I'm right there with the original poster. There's no way on earth I'm gonna let strangers into my house, regardless of how much of a family this neighborhood claims to be. Like, that is super inappropriate and definitely not happening. Like, you just met these people. You don't know anything about them. And for this Melinda lady to sit here and be like, oh, it's required. You have 2 weeks to host a party. Like, that is just so weird and creepy to me. It's almost like she's setting you up so she can rob you or try to, like, I don't know, do something to your house. Like, no, I'm not gonna show off my house and allow you to trounce all over the place. And I'm definitely not obligated to do so either. So hopefully you can get away from Melinda, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is completely insane. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for kicking my family out of my house after they were being unfairly harsh about my husband's cooking? Because right now they're saying that I overreacted and that I let my temper get the best of me in the worst way possible. But at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start off with a bit of context, my husband grew up in a very unhealthy environment. He and his siblings were raised on a farm, were never sent to school, never given any formal education, and never gained any skills with numbers or with reading. The boys were delegated to outdoor work where they did manual labor and learned to maintain farming equipment. The girls were delegated to indoor work and cooking and cleaning. The boys were never allowed in the kitchen, not even to get a drink. Their house was bare bones. And before my husband ran away at 18 years old, he never even saw a microwave. They were conditioned to stay and continue this, marry there, and raise their kids the exact same way. But my husband wanted more, and knowing his family would be unsupportive and possibly try to stop him, he ran away in the middle of the night. He left being unable to read or write, with no money, no outside social interactions, and having no life skills. Well, he has come a long way since then. He is still working on his education, but he also holds a job. He is an amazing, thoughtful man. Just before we got married, he asked me if I would teach him how to cook, and he wanted this because he wanted to do more for me and for the future kids. He wanted to cook for us and provide for us. He wants to be better than what he was raised to be. It's been a little over 2 years now, and he has grown significantly. But for someone who had to start at the most basic things that even kids know how to do, it means he's had some bumps along the way being in his 20s when he started to learn anything. But he loves cooking and he does his best. It's not always great, but there's always something to compliment. And while I am always honest with him, I always make sure if I have to give a lot of constructive criticism, that I pair it with at least one thing that's positive. Now, my family knows all of this. They know all the details of his past, and they know that he started with no prior knowledge. They know that he didn't step foot inside of a real kitchen for almost 20 years. So when he hosted them for dinner, and my parents and siblings were so awful about the food and my husband's abilities, and shamed him for not being better after all this time, I lost my cool with them. I told them he tried so hard, and the least they could do was be grateful. And it was not as bad as they claimed. My grandparents even said so. But my parents and siblings told him to just give up because clearly he would never be any good. After that, I kicked them out, and I told them that I would not stand for them treating my husband this way. My mom even commented that the illiterate in him must be dumb in other things as well. My husband was crushed. He loves my family, and hearing them respond as they did was really tough for him. I later got inundated with text messages from parents and siblings about how rude I was for kicking them out, and how I let my temper get the best of me in the worst way. So seriously, am I the jerk for kicking them out? Because I'm still upset about this, and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all, because these people needed to be kicked out of your house. They seriously showed up for dinner, had someone else cooking for them, and then had the audacity to be like, oh wow, you really suck at cooking. The illiterate person inside of you must be dumb in other ways too. You should just give up on cooking altogether. You'll never be good. Like, seriously? What is going on right now? That is not the right way to be a house guest, and that is no way to talk to anybody, let alone someone that you're claiming is your family. Like, that is actually insane to me, and I just will never understand why they would ever think that's a good idea. But you know what? At least you now know how toxic these people truly are, and you know that they cannot be trusted in this way ever again, because their reaction to this cooking is honestly so atrocious, and your husband did not deserve that in the slightest. Would I be the jerk for not reimbursing my in-laws after they invited themselves onto my family's vacation? Because right now they are very upset about us changing our hotel plans, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my in-laws have wanted to go on vacation with me and my husband ever since our first child was born. I was always against going together, while my husband felt indifferent towards it, but supported me in my wishes. His parents are nice people, but they do like to control everyone around them, and a vacation with them would just not feel like a vacation at all. For this summer, my husband and I had booked a rather expensive family hotel and got insurance so we could cancel should something better come along. His parents asked for our travel details, which admittedly we did not find strange, because my husband always shares these things with them. I mean, they pretty much know every detail about our lives. Last week, my husband and I decided to change our plans. It is still 3 weeks until our vacation, but we felt a bit bad about the hotel that we had booked initially, but it is also very popular, and as far as I know, they already had a waiting list anyways, leaving me saying, okay, so far so good. Well, yesterday, my in-laws were at our place, and when we told them about our new plans, they just blew up on us. Apparently, they had wanted to surprise us and have booked the same week at the same hotel. They don't like the hotel or the destination, but they finally wanted an opportunity to go on a family vacation with us. They also haven't gotten any insurance, so if they cancel now, they will still be charged about half the price. Now, they are not poor, but they are both retired, and losing this kind of money will hurt them a lot. They don't plan on going without us. Of course, my husband's side of the family is now mad at us, and they're blaming everything on us. They're upset that we chose an expensive hotel, and that we changed our plans, and that we didn't agree to going on vacation with my in-laws in the first place. They say that we basically forced them to be sneaky about it. Now, here's why I think I may be the jerk in this situation. My husband wants to reimburse them. Admittedly, we could afford it, but I still don't want to do it. I say that they need to learn their lesson, or we will be dealing with this scenario every year from now on. However, my husband's siblings say that I'm the jerk because in the end, my husband will be the one suffering. Knowing my in-laws, they will hold this against us for years to come, and it will be an uncomfortable topic on every family event. I have learned to ignore them, but my husband has been conditioned to cater to their needs and feels guilty if he doesn't. So am I the jerk for not wanting to reimburse them? Because right now, I am super frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, for starters, this is not your problem. They're trying to make it be like, oh, you forced us to be sneaky about this. If you had just let us go on vacation in the first place, none of this would have happened. But it's like, wait a second, let's back up a second. How is this anybody's fault except for their own that they booked a hotel that they didn't tell anybody about? Like, seriously, this is not anybody's fault except for the in-laws. Why on earth would they invite themselves onto your vacation after you made it pretty clear that you don't want to go on vacation with them? Like, what is happening right now? That is so unfair for you. And you know what? It doesn't help that everybody's trying to like pin this on you and your husband, because this literally is not your fault. So honestly, if you choose not to reimburse them, in my opinion, not only is that the only option, but you definitely would not be the jerk. And if anything, this is going to be a valuable lesson to your in-laws that they need to learn how to respect your boundaries. Am I the jerk for kicking my sister and her family out of my house in the middle of the night after they nearly caused my dog to pass away? Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I moved to the United States 3 years ago with my husband after we got our green cards approved. We moved to Central Florida, which is notorious for its tourist attractions. Ever since we moved, my sister, her husband, and my niece and nephew have visited every year around this time. We love to host and even bought a house to accommodate family and friends that might be visiting. The issue started on the third day of their visit. I left the night before for a night shift at the hospital, and my husband had a very early one. When I got home by 1:00 p.m., I found my 9-month-old puppy locked in the garage. He doesn't have access to the area because there is no AC in there. And this is summer in Florida, so it is very hot. And on top of that, I am afraid he will run away when the door opens. It was pure luck that he was laying down so close to the entry door, or I could have run him over before I saw him. He was lethargic and breathing heavily, so I immediately took him to the vet. I get there and I find out he was overheated and dehydrated, and he could have passed away if if I hadn't got there when I did. I finally returned home at about 7 o'clock p.m., and when I entered, I instantly saw that my favorite vase that I got from my late grandma wasn't in the center table, but when I open the trash, I find it there in pieces. And I was already fuming about the puppy, and now I see this. When I pulled up the images from the house cameras I had recently installed because of the dog, I saw that the 9-year-old kid said goodbye to my husband and their parents, and when they left, they proceeded to discuss whose turn it was to break something in my house. My nephew argued that he had done it last year, so it was my niece's turn. My niece then proceeded to throw some grass on the floor, at which point my puppy got fussy and started barking. They got annoyed, so they took him to the garage before returning, and then they picked up my vase and smashed it on the floor. When their parents returned, they simply said that they had an accident. My sister cleaned it up and they made their way to the parks. My blood boiled. I immediately packed their bags and I put it by the door, with my husband arriving and helping out as well. As soon as they arrived, I told them how their kids behaved, that they caused harm to my dog, and they broke something irreplaceable to me. My sister tried to argue that it was an accident and that they're just kids, but I just shoved the video into her face. But even then, she still tried to argue, saying that we were family and she didn't have money to pay for a hotel for the rest of the trip, and that it was the middle of the night. I simply stated that I didn't care, and she had to take her little monsters away from me. She left screaming and then crying. And obviously, this morning I woke up to several messages in the family group chat calling me all sorts of names for kicking them out in a different country and how I was being mean. My mom wrote about how disappointed she was at me, but I just didn't have the energy to reply to anyone back yet. So before I do that, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm still angry and I just don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. The fact that these people not only destroyed like an irreplaceable family heirloom of some kind, but also nearly caused your dog to pass away is more than enough reason for these people to be kicked out permanently. Like, that is so dangerous. That dog sat in a garage without any air conditioning in the boiling heat of Florida of all places. Like, you can't just do that and expect there not to be some kind of consequences. And it's also pretty damaging to me that the sister is like, oh, but it's okay, they're just kids. This is all just an accident. Come on, we're family. But it's like, lady, there is literally evidence pointing against your stupid kids. So no, you are not the jerk for kicking them out, because if these people are seriously going to disrespect your home, then in my opinion, they should not be allowed to ever come back in it. Am I the jerk for refusing to clear out my car on short notice just so I could give my boyfriend's coworker a ride home? Here's what happened. So I'm a 28-year-old female, and I had a girls' night out while my boyfriend was working. He works second shift at a hotel. We share a car right now, and I planned on picking him up after his shift and planned my girls' nights out accordingly. We have a lot of stuff in the car, and we made plans for the middle of the week when we were both off so that we could clean it out. For reference, we live on the 3rd floor apartment with no elevator, so it's hard for me to move it all by myself on short notice, especially in such a quick time frame. Some of it is heavy, plus most of it is his garbage. I'm not his mom and I shouldn't have to clean up after him, but I did offer to help with about half of it because I was tired of our car being a storage unit. Well, his coworker rides a bike to work and found out that his apartment complex isn't far from ours, and my boyfriend volunteered us to give this guy a ride home without asking me first, but we would have to fit not only him but his bike as well. So my boyfriend demands that I end my hangout early so that I can go home and clean out the car by myself, with him saying that he can't help out because he's working. This way he can give his colleague a ride home and fit his bike in the car. Well, when he said this, I just said no. I'm literally with my friends, and I shouldn't have to clean out what's mostly his stuff anyways by myself and have to carry it up 3 flights of steps to our 3rd floor apartment last minute just because he decided to volunteer me for something without asking me first. Now, as a bit of context, he has a terrible habit of volunteering us for stuff without consulting me, and I've just kind of always went along with it because I didn't want to be a jerk, but this time I put my foot down. I said that he needs to ask me first. Well, he then said that there is no time, and I should understand so that this poor man doesn't have to bike home in the dark. Well, ever since I refused last night, my boyfriend has been acting very sullen with me. So it really begs the question, am I the jerk for refusing to clear out my car on such short notice just so my boyfriend can give his coworker a ride home? Because right now I'm still frustrated and I just don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your boyfriend volunteered you for something that you literally could not fulfill, and he literally did this in such a selfish way that put you on the spot for something you didn't even want to do. I can't stand when people do this to somebody, or when it happens to me from somebody that I know. Like, seriously, don't volunteer me for something like that. bad? It just puts me in a weird situation, and I find it incredibly manipulative. Because if I don't say yes, it's gonna make everybody feel bad. You're gonna feel bad because I said no, but also you're gonna make me feel guilty because I made you look bad in front of your friend. Like, if he really wanted this to happen, he could have easily just called you and been like, hey, how can we make this work? Is this even an option, or do we need to wait and do this another time? But instead, he volunteers you on the spot and then gets upset when you're like, no, I can't do that. That's unreasonable. Which, by the way, in case you were wondering, it is absolutely unreasonable for him to act this way. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My entitled scumbag parents have moved in with me and my siblings into a house that we were renting. But even though they said they would pay rent and contribute to the household, they have, ever since they moved in, refused to do anything to contribute to the house. And right now, I feel like I'm at my breaking point, as I want them evicted from my house. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my parents have been irresponsible my entire life. I've been homeless and in many uncomfortable housing situations, including living with extended family, living in homeless shelters and cars, or just straight up squatting in a house on and off throughout my entire childhood. In fact, during my senior year of high school, I lived in a motel. I turned 18 in late 2021 during the pandemic, and this is while my parents and two of my siblings lived in the motel. I was in my first semester of college and had to return to the motel due to financial struggle. During that time, my dad had told us that the weekly rent owed to the motel was paid through a COVID rental assistance program. However, they would spend their money on gambling, illegal substances, and alcohol, and they would never buy food, causing us to lose a lot of weight. Two of us were in college, and they would take the relief money that we received and spend it as well. Then they would turn around and criticize us for not having jobs, even though my mom didn't have a job either, and one of my siblings had to quit theirs because my parents would take their money while they were sleeping, and it got to a point where they couldn't afford transportation to the job. On top of that, I had no birth certificate or social security card because they lost it when I was like 5 years old, and they just never replaced it, so I couldn't get a job until I got them. It took so many months, but my siblings and I figured out how to receive my documents, and we got jobs to save up and move away from our parents because their irresponsible ways were keeping us trapped in the motel with them. Now, I've got to be honest, it was really hard to save and keep money away from our parents. At first, my dad would tell me how he made more money than me and that my money from my near minimum wage job meant nothing. He would let me know constantly that on a bad week, he made twice as much as me. But then he and my mom would turn around and ask me for money, and they would get mad when we would ask them why, or if we even said no to them. It was hard with them taking our money, but after 5 months of working, we had enough money to start looking for a place. We decided not to rush, since we also wanted money to save for a car. We told our parents that we were looking for a place, and they said that they would also look for themselves. While still touring houses, we were given an eviction notice, and it turned out my dad had been lying about paying rent. We had no clue because he did say the COVID program was over and would ask us for the money to cover it. So my siblings and I decided to just move into any place that we could. We got accepted for a 3-bedroom house for a good price in today's economy, and we had our move-in day set just before the eviction date. Well, just before we moved in, my dad asked if he and my mom could move in with us for just a year and said that he would even pay half the rent and that we could split the other half 3 ways. Now, we didn't think he'd actually do that, but we agreed because we felt bad and we didn't want them to be homeless, and we figured that we could use their car just a little bit more. I ended up getting a new car the same week that we moved in, and then my parents' car needed some work, so we ended up splitting the rent 4 ways, between me, my 2 siblings, and my dad. Then he crashed his car and never got it fixed because he had no insurance. After that, it continued to get worse. My mom would take my car, lie about where she was going, and not bring it back in time for us to go to work. My dad then yells at me for asking for the money in weekly increments, but never has it all at the end or the beginning of the month. They refuse to put money in the grocery pile, but always eat all the food in the house. They will take things from my room without asking. They never put gas in my car after using it. They argue constantly, and I was even taking classes at a local community college, but I had to stop because I had to work more hours just so I could cover for all the things that they would do and for the stuff they wouldn't pay for. And trust me, this is just a small list of all the things they do that really affect me. My siblings and I want to stay in this house because the rent is so affordable and its location is extremely convenient for its distance from shopping, recreation, and my job. I can work 25 hours a week and go to school while living comfortably. How do I get them to move out? Or do I just accept that my siblings and I will have to move and leave them homeless? homeless. What should I do? There is no reason why you should have to live with these people, especially with the way they're acting. They're literally just mooching off of you and your siblings, and that is absolutely not fair. So I don't know about you, but I would definitely start the process of like evicting them if I really wanted them out of that house. It doesn't seem like they contribute a single thing of value to that house, and in my opinion, that is not fair for you and your siblings in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my family move in simply because my 16-year-old son doesn't want them to? Here's what happened. About 5 years ago, my husband cheated on me and then abandoned our family. And this was an incredibly difficult time. I was left alone to raise our son, who was just 11 years old at the time. None of my family members offered any help or support, and we were essentially on our own. The only person who helped us was my father, who was a great support system both emotionally and financially. When my father passed away 2 years ago, he left me with a significant inheritance. This money allowed me to buy a house and provide a stable, comfortable life for my son and myself. Since my husband left, my son and I have become very close. We've been through a lot together, and our bond is incredibly strong. I mean, I would do anything for him. Recently, some of my extended family members have fallen on hard times and asked if they could move in with us. Now, given our history, I was initially very hesitant. I discussed it with my son, and he was very much against the idea. He remembers how nobody was there for us when we needed them the most, and feels strongly that they shouldn't benefit from our home now. Understanding his feelings and valuing his comfort, I decided to tell my family that they couldn't move in with us. And now they're upset and accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful. They say that I owe them support because we're family. I don't think that I'm the jerk, and honestly, I don't care what they think as long as my baby is happy, but I still want to hear other people's opinions. So am I the jerk for refusing to let my family move in simply because my son doesn't want them to? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really sounds like your family left you guys high and dry. Like, how can they possibly expect that you would extend the same favor to them that they literally denied you and your son? I think your son has it right. I think his intuition is correct. And in my opinion, this is them getting a taste of their own medicine. Am I the jerk for disinviting a friend from an event after she gave away my ticket to see Taylor Swift over to her sister? Because right now I am heartbroken, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So back when Eras tour tickets were released, my friend, who we will call Sadie, said that she would grab us tickets and I would pay her back. We made concrete plans and I was so excited. I've been a fan of Taylor Swift for years, but I've never seen her live. I had to sell my stadium tour tickets back in the 2010s because my mom was passing away and I needed the money to help pay for medical bills. This past weekend, I was having a little get-together for a bunch of friends, and Sadie was of course invited. At some point, she pulled me aside and told me that she had news. She said that she was leaving in September, and when she said that, I was heartbroken. We've been friends for years, and I love spending time with her. I get all teary-eyed and I hug her a bunch, and said that we needed to get all of our thrifting trips in over the summer and hang out as much as we could. Then she broke the news that as a way to bond with her sister before she left, she was going to be taking her to see Taylor Swift instead. And when she said that, I didn't know how to react. She stood in front of me and Venmo'd my payment back. She said to me, "I just knew you would understand." I said that this was a sneaky move and honestly really a crappy thing for her to do, and that I don't understand how or why she would do that to me. She got defensive and said that they were under her name and that she didn't owe me anything. And I was like, yes, they are your tickets, and legally you can do whatever you want, but this is still a really awful and sneaky thing to do to your friend, knowing that there is no way I will be able to get my own tickets at this point. She just shrugged and said, "Sorry, but I figured you would understand." I then asked her to leave, and I told her to please not come back for the 4th of July party next week. I said I needed to process this, and that I'm really disappointed with her and how she's treated me. This is a girl who I consoled through breakups, as well as job losses and pet losses, so I was so heartbroken. Well, she looked shocked and asked if I was serious, and eventually she ended up stomping off and leaving. She then texted me later to tell me that she's around if I want to apologize for making her feel bad, all because she wanted to take her sister on a bonding trip, as she put it. I'm honestly heartbroken that I'm going to be watching my show on a grainy live stream instead of being there in the stadium with everybody. I was looking forward to this so much. I checked the resale sites and I had a sad little cry about all of it, and I'm now wondering if I'm completely wrong to have just uninvited her. Did I go too far? If it was in, say, a month or two, I don't think I would have, but honestly, I just need time. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your friend's a massive jerk for going back on your deal and for basically ruining your plans. Like seriously, you had your heart set on this concert. You've wanted to go to this for several years, and now, all because your friend's being selfish, she's gonna turn around and be like, sorry, I'm giving your ticket to somebody else. Like that is such a crappy thing to do, and I think you had every right to say, no, you cannot show up to my party. So no, you're not the jerk for disinviting her because your friend did the exact same thing to you for your Taylor Swift concert. And in my opinion, that is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that they need to learn to live without me, since I will be moving out when I turn 18 and I will no longer be available to take care of my other younger siblings? Here's what happened. So my parents have a lot of kids. They always wanted a big family and were not prepared for how hard that would be. I'm a 17-year-old male and I'm the oldest of 10 kids, and my parents have relied on me for so long that I don't remember a time where I wasn't treated like a third adult in the house. My siblings range from 15 all the way down to 4 years old. My parents are still technically able to have more kids too, because neither are 40 years old yet, and it honestly still scares me, I won't lie. We already struggle so much with 10 of us, and I know it would be worse if they added more, especially when I'm so close to moving out. In our house, we have a boys' room, a girls' room, and our parents' room. We basically all sleep in these tiny, stupid bunk beds in order to fit everybody in. Nobody gets brand new clothing, as it's all from thrift stores for me and the oldest of my sisters, and our younger brothers and sisters just get hand-me-downs. It was expected that I would step up by the time I was 5 years old. I had to make mine and my siblings' beds, had to tidy up after younger siblings, had to stop my younger siblings from climbing onto things, and I was expected to clean the floors. Over time, more chores were added to my list, helping to cook, babysitting, even when I was too young to really be doing that, as well as helping with homework, holding siblings' hands when we went grocery shopping. Also, they wouldn't run off, cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning both boys' and girls' bedrooms, tidying up if we had any kind of guests coming over, and the list goes on and on. My siblings weren't really given any chores, and I was basically doing just as much as my parents around the house. Now, when it comes to my siblings, they relied on me for way too much, from driving them places to picking them up from places, to me also giving them permission for stuff. They expect me to buy them stuff, and they come to me more than our parents, and sometimes come to me after our parents if they don't like what our parents said. They get upset whenever I try to get them to help out, and our parents won't back me up, so they have never done any kind of chore or helped out at all in the slightest. They get so mad when I ask, and they say that I'm not mom or dad, and then they also won't go to mom or dad for this kind of stuff most of the time. My parents are starting to freak out a bit because I will be 18 years old in October, and they know that I plan on moving out. I also work part-time, and that gets relied on to help financially, and between that and all that I do around the house, it finally dawned on my parents that I won't be around in a few more months. They started word vomiting all of this on me, and I told them that they need to learn to live without me because it's not my job to be the third adult in the house anymore. They told me I'll still be part of the family and that I can't just abandon them, but I said I will not support the household after I turn 18 because it won't be my job. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk because it sounds like your parents clearly just want you to be a third parent in this house. I bet if it was up to them, they would probably be like, no, don't ever move out of the house. Stay in the house and keep helping us take care of all these kids that we had. And that, in my opinion, is just not fair for you. You have every right to live your life and not be some kind of like parent to your siblings. I think when you do decide to move out, it would be really important to have copies of all your papers, namely stuff like your social security card, your passport, your birth certificate, all the stuff that you can possibly have so that you can move forward and not have to go back. That way they can never interfere with your life and you can basically have everything in check before you go. So truly, I'm so sorry you had to deal with this, but hopefully things get better in the future because you absolutely deserve to have freedom from taking care of your siblings. An entitled coworker commits a felony just so she can try and get me and my coworkers in trouble, as she claimed that we were being lazy on the job and that now she had proof to try and get us fired. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work in a warehouse for one of the major US packaging delivery companies, so something like Amazon or FedEx, something along those lines. I load a straight truck, but I also handle packages that mistakenly end up in the wrong parts of the building and need to be carted to the right one. I do this for 3 separate areas, which can keep me pretty busy. Monday morning for us was a nightmare. We were incredibly short-staffed and we were so busy. So on top of handling my very packed truck, I was also assisting another work area that was way behind, assisting my manager in in loading a semi-trailer and checking on 3 other coworkers who had multiple straight trucks to load by themselves. My manager asked me to do all of this since everyone else was also extremely busy. This meant my original truck would often get neglected and the packages would often pile up until I could get back to loading them. Well, this is where my entitled coworker enters the field. She's a coworker who has come back from about a month off. She's responsible for sorting packages off of one of the main conveyor belts and sending them to my work area as well as a couple of others. So when I'm not there to load my truck, it can get pretty backed up, and that stresses this coworker right out. Another thing about this coworker is that she's been kicked out of every other part of the building for being too slow and for consistently complaining. If you ask her to lift a heavy box, she cries that she can't do it. If it's getting busy and packages are piling up, she cries that she can't handle all the work. If another coworker snaps at her, as it is a really stressful job so tempers can run high, and simply asks that she do her job, she cries that the other person started the fight. Her and I have had problems before, but I just try to ignore her. I don't come to work to start drama or fights. I come to work, I sweat my butt off, and then I get paid. So on Monday, as I'm running ragged doing the jobs of 5 people, and my work area was getting backed up frequently, I walk over to hand some rediverted packages over to a different coworker who was also backed up and running ragged. I then look up and I see just in time that this entitled coworker, with her phone up, was taking pictures of me, my work area, and my coworker's work area so she could send them to our manager to complain about how lazy we were being. Now, for those of you that don't know, taking pictures of personal packages and addresses is highly illegal. It counts as a form of mail fraud, which is a felony offense. If the United States Postal Inspection Services found out, our warehouse could have been raided and she could have been thrown in jail. So not only is it rude, it's extremely and explicitly forbidden in the workplace. So as soon as I saw her do that, I just started fuming. Thankfully, I happened to spot the upper manager across the way, so I stopped him and I told him what happened, and he had a stern talking to with her. I didn't hear most of the conversation, but I did hear her crying as she was trying to pin all the blame on another coworker for being overloaded with packages. I don't think she got in serious trouble this time, but I doubt that she learned her lesson, and if she does it again, I won't hesitate to go higher up, because at this point, I seriously hope that this idiot gets fired. Yeah, this coworker sounds like a complete idiot. Like, for starters, there's no way that she didn't know that you can't take pictures of other people's packages. Like, she had to have had some kind of training before she started there, right? So for her to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take pictures of this just to get you in trouble. You're being so lazy. Which is hilarious to be coming from her, as she's like the biggest crybaby on planet Earth. From the sounds of it, she barely does her job, and she freaks out anytime anyone tells her what to do. So if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would have done the exact same thing, because her behavior was completely unacceptable. An entitled Karen makes a scene at my library as she openly criticizes a group of young boys who are clearly disabled. And I'm honestly still gobsmacked by the way she acted, and I seriously hope she never comes back into my library ever again. Here's what happened. So I work at a busy public library. We have a large open floor for most of our collection where people are welcome to talk. We have a quiet reading room with awesome furniture and free Wi-Fi for anyone who wants a traditional quiet library experience. There's no talking and no cell phone use in this area, but patrons can talk in all other areas of the building. Well, this entitled Karen comes in with an ancient Kindle Fire and can't figure out why it doesn't work, stating that it's just so slow. Well, I realized that she has 45 programs running at once and 253 tabs open in her browser. I show her how to close a program when she's done and how to close out tabs in her browser. While I'm working on her device, a mom walks in with 2 profoundly autistic teenage boys. These boys are very sweet and they come to the library frequently. They both have loud verbal stems where they will make noise and even hum. Now, the mom is very mindful of this and gets them in and out of the library pretty quickly, even though we have told her that we are not a silent space and the boys are welcome anytime. Now, it's important to note that these boys are visibly disabled, so when they come in, this entitled Karen begins glaring at them every time they vocalize. Seeing her getting angry at these young men for something that they cannot help, I hurry up and I finish with her and get her ready to leave the library. As she stands up, she turns towards the mom in a proud voice and loudly states, "I thought libraries were supposed to be quiet. Those kids need to be controlled better." And she then actually smiles at me, thinking that I'm going to agree with her. Well, I match her volume and I say to her, "Oh, no, not at all. We are not a quiet space in any way. Most libraries aren't. If you need a quiet spot, please go to the quiet reading room." This entitled Karen lady let out an awful groan, and my next customer in line said said something that honestly was so funny. They said to her, "For someone who can't even close a tab on a browser, you're being pretty judgmental, lady." And when they said that, this entitled Karen stomped off. And as a thank you for saying what we were all thinking, I gave this person a $5 coupon in printing for free, just as a thank you for putting this Karen in her place. Because trust me, that lady absolutely deserved it. Wow, how on earth can you be so obtuse that you don't see exactly what's going on? Like, those kids are very clearly disabled apparently, so it should be obvious to anybody walking by that the way they're acting is not because they're being like out of control children. Like, that is so disrespectful and just disgusting for that Karen to say. She has no right to sit there and be like, "Oh wow, you need to be a better parent." But I find it hilarious that the customer spoke up that was behind her and pretty much brought her back down to reality, because this Karen was being a complete moron. And in my opinion, if you're gonna play stupid games like this, you better be ready for stupid prizes by somebody putting you in your place. An entitled Karen encourages her kid to punch me in the face over and over again, all while I'm trying to do my job as a plumber, claiming that he has every right to attack me in her home and that there is nothing that I can do about it. So I decided to get some petty revenge by quietly packing up my stuff and quitting right there on the spot, leaving this entitled Karen to freak out, all because she paid good money to have me fix her sink. And I've honestly never dealt with anybody so entitled in my life. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a plumber, and my job brings me to the insides of a lot of homes. I have many funny stories, but this is really my only negative one. So anyways, this one time I was scheduled to go to this lady's house because she needed her sink fixed. Her husband had left her recently and she didn't know how to fix the problem. And she has called in a couple of times, as her husband would be gone quite frequently and couldn't fix it himself. So I was called into the home, and as I arrived, I was greeted by this lady's child. He yells to his mother and she lets me in and leads me to the sink that isn't working. Now, in most cases, the sink is leaking, but this one wasn't pushing water into the spout, so there was no mess that I could see. Well, right as I was getting started, this entitled Karen's child approaches me as I'm starting to work, and he literally just starts kicking me. Now, for the record, he's definitely not hurting me, but it got really agitating after a little bit, so I tell this kid to stop it. But when I said that, he proceeds to start hitting me in the face. So I went to the entitled Karen to see if she would do anything about it, but boy was I wrong. I went up to her and I said, "Could you possibly tell your son to please stop hitting me while I'm working? He's making it hard to focus." She looked at me and said, "What do you mean? Is he hurting you?" I responded by saying, "No, not really. I'm just trying to focus and it's really annoying." This entitled Karen gives me a look and says to me, "So if he's not hurting you, then what does it matter?" But I said, "Well, I'm trying to focus and it's quite aggravating." This entitled Karen then looks at her kid and says, "Is this true?" And this kid looked at her and said yes. And I was just shocked that he didn't lie to her. The entitled Karen then looks at me and says, "Well, it's my house and our rules are just different than yours." And when she said this, I literally could not believe what she was saying. I said to her, "Are you being serious?" This entitled Karen said, "Yes, I am. My son is allowed to hit you because you are in the premises of my house." And after she said that, she crosses her arms and gives me another look. Well, after hearing just about enough of that, I begin to start packing up my tools and such, and I start walking towards the door to leave. The entitled Karen then looks at me and says, "What are you doing? I pay good money for your services." But I just looked at her and I said, "I'll make sure that you get a refund." And then I got in my car and I drove away. Now, from what I know, this hasn't happened to any other people who came into the house to fix it, as it wasn't brought up to me, nor has anyone left on her ever before. And while I did provide her a refund, I just hope that I never have to deal with someone like this ever again. Wow, I can't imagine just trying to do my job and then have some stupid kid kicking me in the leg in the process. And then when you tell the kid, "Hey, get lost, scram, get away from me," he literally just starts punching you in the face. And then you go to the mom and she's like, "Oh, he's allowed to do that. How dare you correct him?" And it's like, what are you talking about, lady? You can't just allow your stupid kid to punch someone in the face like that. That's so inappropriate and so unprofessional. So you know what? If I was the plumber in this scenario, I would have done the exact same thing. I am not about to put up with that for a single second, and neither should the original poster. Like, that is so uncalled for. So good for you for walking out on that job, because that lady was clearly out of her mind if she thought this was appropriate. And for her to justify this as if this is some kind of like house rule, in my opinion, shows exactly how toxic this entitled Karen truly was. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for calling out a guest who wore white at my friend's wedding, despite the fact that the bride never made a big deal about it or even made mention of it to me and my friend before we confronted them, because right now I really feel guilty, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this situation happened a week ago. I'm a 28-year-old female, and another girl who we will call Mary were invited to my friend's wedding. We were good friends with the bride in college, and we stayed in touch afterwards. The wedding was amazing. However, there was this one moment I had with another guest that kept me feeling guilty even when I was typing this. There was a girl who sat at the bride's family table, and she wore a bright white dress. I thought it was weird considering guests should not be wearing white or off-white colors to a wedding. Mary had some comments saying that it was unacceptable, rude, and inconsiderate because she's never been to a wedding where guests wear white and then casually walk around, chat with people, and participate in activities. And you know what? I agreed with her because it was unfamiliar to me too. I suggested that we bring it up with the bride when we have a chance. However, we couldn't get a hold of her alone for the rest of the night as she was busy going around other tables and doing a bunch of activities. But I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I walked up to the girl when she sat down at the table, with Mary coming soon after me. I pointed out that she was being rude for wearing white and for following the bride around while showing off her dress to all the other guests. Mary supported me by agreeing and saying that the bride must feel extremely bothered that her guest was trying to ruin her special day. Well, the girl seemed shocked for a bit and said that she was sorry. She said that she didn't know and that the bride didn't say anything, so she thought it was okay. But I told her that the bride was kind enough to let her stay because if I were the bride, she would have been kicked out right when she walked through the door in that dress. Eventually, Mary said a few more things and then we left. Now, I thought my action was justifiable and I felt kind of proud for sticking up for my friend. For the rest of the night, I sometimes looked over the girl's table and I noticed that she didn't leave her seat until after the wedding was over and that she left with the bride. I contacted the bride a few days after the wedding to thank her for the wedding gifts and for inviting me to her wedding. Then I brought up the girl and I asked if my friend was bothered by her at all. To my surprise, she didn't and even felt happy that the girl did. She clarified that the girl was her niece who flew from another country to attend her wedding and that the dress she was wearing was a gift from my friend herself. The niece even sewed in 2 swans to symbolize my friend and her husband loving each other eternally. So that's why she was showing off the dress to all of the other guests at the wedding. My friend also told me that guests not allowed to wear white at a wedding is never a thing where she came from, so people just do it all the time. Well, at that point, I just felt so guilty and embarrassed after knowing this, because the girl looked extremely down after my confrontation. I thought I did the right thing, but now I feel like a complete jerk. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest, I really think you are the jerk in this scenario. For starters, this isn't your wedding, and even though you're probably really good friends with the person who did get married, it's just not your place to sit there and be like, wow, how could you wear white at this wedding? What you did is so disrespectful for my friend, I'm sure she just doesn't like it. But it's like, sure, your intentions were probably good, but also, why would you go out of your way to speak on behalf of your friend at her wedding? Like, if anything, you should have definitely gone to her first, regardless of how busy she was, and actually asked her if she had any opinion on that person wearing white at her wedding. Because you don't know the real reason they were wearing white. There could have been any number of explanations that she could have given you, but it sounds like you didn't even give her a chance to explain why she was sitting there wearing what she was. So yes, I do think that you're the jerk in this scenario, because what you and Mary did, in my opinion, was incredibly rude. Am I the jerk for finally snapping at my sister-in-law after she had spent the last decade making fun of my name, all because my name sounds like a girl's name? Because right now she is super offended that I finally said something, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm 32 years old, and I've been together with my wife since we were 19, and I met her family after we'd been together for a year. My sister-in-law was the first person that I actually met, and the first time that we did meet, she blurted out that I have a girl's name and then proceeded to laugh about it. For reference, my name is Sky. My wife told her to shut up and stop laughing, and back then it didn't really bother me. I just laughed and I told her that there were plenty of guys around who were named Sky, including my great-grandfather, who I was partially named after. I was named after my great-grandfather who went by Sky his entire life, and after Sky Matterson from the musical Guys and Dolls. So the first time was no big deal. Some people have asked me before if I felt like my name was a girl's name and not a guy's name, and I honestly never minded. My sister-in-law joked a lot about my name and our kid's name when we were expecting our babies. It got a little annoying, but you know, I was able to brush it off, and my wife would cut off her sister and would tell her to leave if she went a little too far, which only happened once back then. We didn't see her a lot for a while, but she got engaged last year and was around more, and she seemed to have calmed down a lot. But now that she's having her own baby, she has really started to test my patience. It started with her husband asking what she thought of the name Sky for their daughter. She joked that they couldn't use the name because she didn't want me to feel more like a girl than I already do. But my wife just told her to grow up, and then we left. The very next time we saw her, they announced that Sky was the name they decided to go with. And I just said, that's cool. And then my sister-in-law said that she was surprised that I was okay with sharing my name with a girl. I told her that her daughter wouldn't be the first, and I wasn't insecure in my masculinity, and that I saw no problem with sharing the same name as a girl. The next time we saw them, we stayed out of her way for the rest of that visit, but then she joked that I had finally gotten embarrassed by my name, and that now I was using my middle name, because one of my uncles who was always called me by my middle name was visiting, and she heard him call me that. More stuff like that happened, and then on Saturday, we were back at my in-laws' house for my mother-in-law's birthday, and my sister-in-law was joking with some of my mother-in-law's siblings about my name, and she tried to involve me by calling me over to tell her dumb jokes. Well, it finally got to me, and I asked her if she needs to be so annoying. I told her how tiring it is to always hear these dumb jokes, which aren't really jokes like she claims, but it's just insults directed at me. She called me sensitive, and I told her that she's the person who hasn't given up on my name in over a decade. I told her that everybody gets it. She sees Sky as a girl's name, but she is not funny. Well, when I said that, my sister-in-law got mad. My wife told her that she was about to become a mom and that she really needed to listen to us and grow up. And we've told her to stop saying this kind of stuff in the past as well, but she always just says that she's joking. So am I the jerk for finally snapping at her? What should I do? This is classic bullying behavior, and the fact that this went on for a decade, in my opinion, is far too long. This should have stopped like a month in. There's no way that's appropriate. And I can also say personally that I wholeheartedly hate people who act like this. They disguise these awful insults as jokes, and they try to pretend like, oh yeah, I'm just joking around. This is like a mutual exchange of fun times. But it's like, no, it's not. You're just trying to say awful things to me and then justify it by being super toxic. Like, if the other person is not laughing and they're not engaged in this joke in some kind of way, then it's not a joke. It literally is just you bothering them and treating them like crap because you think it's funny. And this isn't an isolated incident. Literally, it's been going on for over a decade. You would think after the first few times that she got shut down, she would finally let it go. But now, as the magnum opus of her stupid bullying, she's now naming her daughter the same name as her brother-in-law, just to try and rub it in his face that you have a girl's name. Like, if this is not evidence that she is a terrible human being, then I just don't know what is, because this is completely unacceptable. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would have snapped and shut her down in the same way as well. My mother-in-law wants me to change the name of my business so that my maiden name is removed and their last name is put in its place. And now, after being pestered about this for so long, I am completely lost on what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female and I'm a cosmetic surgeon, and I opened my practice last year. It's been doing very well, and I'm doing the planning now to open another branch at a neighboring state, which is in my in-law state. My husband comes from a well-to-do family where his grandfather was very wealthy, whereas my parents were immigrants and had to get their masters here again while already having a PhD from my home country. I barely saw my parents growing up so that they could feed and house us. So I decided that my practice was going to have my mom and dad's last names. My husband is a great guy and his family is very nice, but they value different things and have weird priorities. I wanted a small wedding in the United States because I had another reception in my parents' home country. My mother-in-law offered to pay for a larger wedding so that they can invite more of their friends, but I stuck to the 50-person limit, which is a lot, by the way, as I wanted 30 at the beginning. And I did this because I wanted people my husband and I both knew and loved to be there. I didn't want my mother-in-law's stylist, her business partner, or their family lawyer to attend. She eventually complied and kept meddling occasionally from then on. I never changed my last name, but I would unofficially be referred to by my husband's last name. At work, though, I still use my name so that I don't confuse my staff and patients, but also to honor my dad for everything he has done all my life. Now that I'm opening another practice, my mother-in-law wants me to use the family name as the brand. I told her it would create confusion and that people might not know that it was mine. I built a lot of trust, patronage, and recognition using my brand, so I don't want to keep correcting people and to start from the bottom in a sense. It makes perfect sense and is the smart decision business-wise. There's also some legal and extra paperwork to be done if I decided to use a different name. She said she is proud of me and wants to show me off, and also her family name is very famous around here, so I might get more patients. She also joked that she should get some kind of royalty for that as well. For reference, their surname is an old American name that back in the day used to do bad things, namely stuff along the lines of corruption and so much more. before, so of course I don't want to use that name. I am Southeast Asian, my staff are diverse, and it's something that I'm proud of since we do focus on ethnic and cultural aesthetics instead of the generic white or European aesthetics. I'm walking on eggshells here, and I plan to let my husband deal with her. They always do a family dinner, and I see her maybe once every 2 weeks, and she always brings this up. Recently, 2 of my sister-in-laws have also been pestering me about it as well. So right now, I feel like I'm at such a loss, and at this point, I don't know what to do. This is so easy, it's not even funny. You just need to tell them straight up, no, I'm not changing the name, that would be really dumb. Or even just saying, no, I'm not gonna change it. Like, the only reason they want you to change it is so that they can attach their name to it and try to claim some kind of ownership over your success. Like, they are literally just leeches, and they're desperately trying to attach their name to it, all because their grandfather was rich at one point. Like, these people do not sound like good people at all, and they're not trying to like brag about you and show you off. They just want to take away from your success. So this is a pretty obvious one, and I think you do know what to do, but I would just tell them straight up, no, I'm not changing the name of my business, because that literally makes no sense. And if they seriously, and I mean actually get offended by that, then they are definitely the ones with a problem, because what they're asking is completely insane. An entitled jerk tries to embarrass another customer at a grocery store, but instead, I step in and shut him down, humiliating him in a way that he will never forget. Here's what happened. So I'm in line at the grocery store just trying to grab some quick lunch. There are a couple of people ahead of me, and the person paying at the register, we'll call them customer number 1, had an issue with one of her items ringing up at a regular price instead of the sale price. So she was waiting along with the cashier for a manager to come down to do an override. Now, it's a busy time at the store because lots of people are there on their lunch breaks, so naturally the manager is taking a while to get there. By now, the line is longer, and a few people leave to go to the other registers, and I just decide to wait because I'm not in a rush. Customer number 1 then turns around and apologizes to everybody for causing the holdup, but most of us just shrug and tell her that it's not her fault, because you know, of course it wasn't. But this older man behind me, we'll call him the jerk, decides to start talking crap. He's saying things like, "What's going on? She doesn't have any money to pay. You shouldn't have come to the store if you can't pay. You should know how much is available on your card before you go shopping." He was basically assuming that she's stuck at the register, all because she couldn't afford her groceries. But like seriously, what if that was the case? Times are tough, and you want to sit there and make someone who is struggling feel even worse? So this guy is glancing around, saying these things so that everybody close by can hear him, but not the actual customer, just so he can see who's going to join in with him on this rant. But as you can probably guess, nobody does. But by now, I'm super pissed. So I turn to him and I say, actually, something rang up incorrectly, and she's waiting for it to be adjusted. She's not here because she can't pay for her items. And it's so rude of you to even say something like that. So now everyone is looking at him, including customer number 1. And now he's embarrassed and super mad. He tries to say that isn't what he was saying, even though he had been standing there ranting the entire time. He then tells me, "Mind your business, little girl." But I tell him that if he's such a big man, he should stand by what he said instead of trying to backtrack because he's embarrassed now, and that maybe next time he will think twice before running his mouth and trying to shame people when he doesn't even know what's going on. By now, the manager had come over and fixed the issue. So customer number 1 thanked me for being so kind and then glanced behind me to give this jerk a dirty look. Now I'm paying for my items and he is still running his mouth. But I turn around and I tell him if he doesn't want to be embarrassed, then maybe next time he can mind his own business. I then turn and walk out of the store and I can still hear him yelling insults. But I'm just glad that I got the last laugh because I taught this entitled jerk a lesson that he won't soon forget. Yeah, this is another one of those situations where someone clearly has like no patience and they think they can say whatever they want and everybody's just gonna suddenly agree with them. It's also really telling that he would look around and be like, okay, who's with me? This person sucks. Why didn't they have any money ready for the register? Am I right? Like, that is so embarrassing as it is, but also incredibly cruel. So what if they couldn't pay for their groceries? The original poster has it right. Like, that is such a mean thing to say to somebody. So I think it's awesome that the original poster spoke up because this guy took things way too far. Am I the jerk for refusing to sleep on a pull-out couch during vacation, despite the fact that I paid for a bed? Because right now, my brother is very frustrated with me for saying no, and right now, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So I planned a family trip with my parents and my brother. Before I officially booked the Airbnb that we would all be splitting the price on, I sent each of them the listing, showing how many bedrooms there were and what accommodations we would have. I made sure to double check with my brother as the house is only 2 bedrooms. One room has 2 full-size beds and the other is a king-size bed. I asked if he would mind sharing a room with me as 3 bedrooms in this area were harder to find. He said it was fine because we'd each each have our own bed and told me that I should go ahead and book it. Well, once our parents signed off on it, that's exactly what I did. When we arrived, before we even have our first night's sleep, my brother declares that we should alternate sleeping on the pull-out couch in the living room. But I say that I'm not going to do that. If he doesn't want to sleep in the room designated for us, then that's fine. But I'm not sleeping on a pull-out on a vacation when there's 2 beds. I asked why he doesn't want to share a room and why this didn't come up sooner, but he said that we're adults and he was too old to share a room. So I asked again, why didn't you bring this up sooner? But he just said that he thought I would agree to the pull-out situation. I then said that he should have assumed or at least had a conversation with me first. Well, he kept insisting, but I just said no. If he wants to sleep out there for the entire vacation, go for it. But I am not alternating when I paid for a bed. Now, him sleeping on the pull-out led to several conflicts with our parents, as he would get mad if they came into the living room in the morning while he was still sleeping. But as they pointed out, it's a living room. This is a public space. If people wanted to hang out in the living room at night, he would start bugging us to go into our rooms so that he can go to sleep as early as 8 o'clock p.m. We're on vacation. We're going to stay up a little later and hang out. I always offered to let him sleep in the extra bed in the room, but he refused unless I promised that I would sleep on the pull-out that night, which of course I definitely didn't do. By the end of the trip, he was irritated with all of us over this. My parents and I feel that he's the one who put himself in the situation and that there was an alternative of him sleeping on the couch, but he chose not to do that. However, my brother is insisting that I should have swapped with him, despite the fact that I didn't want to do that. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I'm just not sure what to say. No, you're not the jerk at all. Your brother's an idiot and he's clearly super entitled because he thought he could spring this on you out of nowhere and you would just somehow be okay with it. Like, that makes absolutely no sense to me and I really just can't understand his reasoning. So in my opinion, if he has a problem with this scenario, then he should have brought it up well before you booked the Airbnb, because his behavior was completely unacceptable. An entitled old jerk tries to get me evicted after I refuse to join his homeowners association. But after dealing with this guy trespassing on my property, as well as all the other sketchy things that he's done to me, I decided to show up to one of his meetings and completely humiliate him in a way that I don't think he will ever forget. And I've truly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents had this rental property that they passed on to me when they passed away, and the house has been there since before the neighborhood next to it was even built, meaning that it's not a part of the HOA. It's been established several times with the previous renters and my parents. While we were renovating to prepare to move in, we installed gates at the 3 entrances to the property because we didn't want people to come into our property. Well, a month after we finished, we had a visit from this one entitled person who opened our back gate since the front one is locked, just to give us a packet that said welcome to the HOA. But I told him that we are not part of the neighborhood, so the HOA doesn't apply to our property. Well, this entitled jerk then got pissed off and said that I am, since his property is right next door. I then nicely repeated myself, and I asked him to not come into my property ever again without my permission. He then let out a scoff and said that he didn't see any no trespassing signs, so he could do whatever he wanted. But thankfully, he eventually left. The next day, we installed locks on the gates and we put up a no trespassing sign. But the next thing we know, we're getting HOA violation letters in our mailbox. The letters also listed things that were happening in our backyard that someone could see if they were looking over the fence. After the 5th notice that threatened eviction, I called the number listed and I explained to a lady the situation that was going on, and she said that the HOA president said that we were part of the HOA and that he was the one reporting us. She then said that all we had to do was prove that we weren't part of the HOA, and then they would waive the fees and leave us alone. So that's exactly what I did. I gathered the paperwork and went to the next meeting where I gave them all of the paperwork, which proved that I was absolutely right. This entitled jerk then lost his mind and said that it didn't matter and that we still needed to follow his rules and that we need to change the things that he wanted. Apparently, the reasons he was upset is that we installed gates and we fixed the fence that prevented him from going where he wanted when he went for his walks. This gate also prevented his family from taking a shortcut to the pool. The backyard was also filled with things that he didn't want seeing from his 2nd-story balcony, and the trees that we planted and the new fence prevented him from seeing our entire property. This entitled jerk got so angry that he literally needed to be brought to a different room just to calm down. I left soon afterwards, but I haven't heard a thing ever since. But I'm honestly still amazed by how entitled this jerk was acting, because he learned a lesson that I don't think he will ever forget. Wow, you live by an actual crazy person. Like, think about it. This guy was so upset that you're not part of the HOA that he had to be brought to another room like a toddler just to calm down. down. This guy's getting red in the face and hyperventilating, all because you said, no, we're not part of your stupid HOA. Like, the level of entitlement you have to possess to have that kind of reaction is insane to me. It honestly just seems like this guy's pissed off that he can't see your entire yard and that you operate outside of his precious HOA. And you know for a fact this is like the last iota of power he has in his life, so he probably just walks around the neighborhood like crazy looking for something to complain about. Like, that is crazy in my opinion, and there is no good reason for that. This guy even tried to justify going into your backyard by being like, oh, I didn't see any no trespassing signs. That means I can do whatever I want and go on your property. It's like, dude, use some common sense. That is absolutely not okay. Because you can bet if you went on his property, he absolutely would have lost his mind. So truly, I am so glad you were able to put this entitled jerk in his place, because he was being super rude and he deserved to be put in his place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mother tries to control every aspect of my life, even after I moved into my own place. But now everything's hit a breaking point in my life, as I simply cannot take her attitude any longer. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my mom is a bit of a narcissist. At first, she appears to be perfectly normal. That is, until you get to know her or even live with her, which is why she can't even keep any friends or even have her own children stay in contact with her. In fact, I've gone no contact with her as of 2023. After having enough of living with her entitlement and narcissism, I moved out between 19 and 20 years old, which is a bit uncommon since rent has skyrocketed in the area. I managed how I could with a roommate who had a well-paying job and my own job. She paid for none of my living expenses, and we did everything on our own. Despite that, she always tried to control every aspect of my life, and her continuing to do this is why I chose to go no contact. I only realized that was an option through therapy and a bunch of supportive friends a few years later. Before that time, I was still listening to her, and she was able to guilt me into a lot of things that I didn't want. When I moved out, I was striving to decorate my new apartment in any way that I saw fit. I had so many ideas. I immediately hung up all the posters I had in my room in the hallway, and I did this because the walls had a few cracks and I wanted to cover them up. We didn't have a kitchen table yet, but we never ate at the table anyways. I wanted something either really small so that it wouldn't take up space, or something that was multifunctional. We ended up looking for a pool table with a solid cover over the top so that we could put a vinyl tablecloth over it to protect it from stains. Now, my dad loved the idea, but my mom, of course, not so much. She hated how I decorated my new apartment, and she claimed that it looked childish with my fairy lights across the ceiling. My dad, on the other hand, thought it looked like a bachelor pad and had no issue with it. She kept making comments about how I needed to take down the posters and get paintings that I didn't like or need. She kept telling me that as a painter, I need to paint something and have it framed in the hallway. Every time I visited or came home for more of my things, it was a similar conversation every single time, where she would just talk about how ugly she thought my apartment was, how she would have never done it that way, how she needed to come in and fix it, and how no adult would ever choose to have it like that. She was wanting me to entirely redecorate my entire apartment, which would have cost me hundreds of dollars to hire a painter, or even just buy stuff that I didn't need from Goodwill. I kept trying to gently tell her that I liked how my apartment looked, and that I was an adult who could make their own choices. We hadn't moved in all my things inside the apartment yet, but it was really horrible how many mean comments she was making on how I had no taste, how I needed to take everything down and start over, and how her house looked so much better than mine. And for the most part, I just ignored it. I was very much used to her hating everything about what I did. But then she stopped making those comments and started to take me to yard sales in hopes of finding me something that I needed. But of course, it was just a plot of her own. She found a kitchen table and chairs that she fell in love with, but I didn't want them. I was looking for a pool table. Well, she bought all of them, and when Dad told her that she wasn't getting rid of his kitchen table, she then just gifted them to me. Now, I was raised to always accept gifts that she gave me, or else she would make everybody's lives a living nightmare. She would make it her mission to make me feel guilty and like the worst person in the world if I didn't appear to like her gifts. And there's even been some times in my life where she has returned some of my Christmas presents, all because I didn't have the correct reaction to them. If I didn't have a huge smile on my face and enthusiastically thanking her for what she had gotten me, it would disappear from the present pile and I would never see it again. There were other times that she told my siblings to steal it from me, and I would never get a chance to use it or even enjoy it, just because I didn't act eternally grateful or put on a huge show of gratitude to make her have any semblance of self-esteem. She thought she was entitled to control my reaction into her giving me a gift. Other times, she thought she was entitled to other people's gifts and then she would just steal them. She would take mine, my dad's, or my siblings' presents simply because she wanted them or she thought she would enjoy them more. I was never allowed to own a console because she believed I would spend less time with her. But in reality, I found other ways to not spend time with her that wasn't technology. She just didn't want to give me something that I'd use to ignore her with. Eventually, I ended up saving every piece of birthday money to buy myself a laptop at 16 years old. And I did this with no help from her because she would often tell people at my birthday parties to not give me any money, claiming that I would just spend it all. When each person approached me about what I wanted for my birthday and teased me about not being good with money, I would tell them my plans and show them my stash of money that I had saved thus far. Now, of course, she took to stealing my money on occasion because she didn't want me to have independence or some kind of way of ignoring her. I was wanting to save up for a car or a computer, something that I would need when I was an adult. I would keep a record of my money in a little notebook, which detailed out down to the penny how much money I had, and it was actually this notebook that helped me discover that my mom was stealing from me. Thankfully, my dad made her feel so bad, so she eventually stopped doing it. Dad often put a stop to things like that, but he couldn't mediate everything due to him working all the time. Now, this is just a few reasons why I had to be very careful of the gifts that she gave me, and the entire reason I begrudgingly accepted the gift of the kitchen table. Otherwise, she would tell the entire extended family that I was on some kind of illegal substances and that I needed to come home. Also, she could make an attempt to try and control me again. Now, when it comes to that kitchen table, it ended up being basically destroyed when I adopted a stray cat who literally just didn't know where the litter box was. The cat eventually figured it out, but she did go to the bathroom on the table quite a few times. And honestly, I was never more proud. The table and chairs ended up in the dumpster when I moved, and most of the chairs had broken because of the climate and wood not being compatible with each other. Now, as for the posters, I did not replace them with paintings, and they stayed where I put them until I moved to another state. Now, the fairy lights did not last because she would come visit and just secretly cut them with scissors. I gave up on replacing them, and I didn't even realize that she was doing it until years later when she admitted to it. I have never felt more free after buying my own home and decorating it with posters, multicolored thumbtacks, and with Christmas lights that I bought on sale, because I am so glad to be free from my mom, as well as her awful controlling tendencies. Yeah, your mom sounds like a piece of work. She's literally trying to control every aspect of your life, despite the fact that you moved out of the house. Like what you described halfway through this story was like a bunch of red flags one after the other. She would give you a gift, sure, but if you didn't react in the way that she wanted you to, she would freak out and take it back. Like seriously, what is wrong with her? So honestly, I'm really glad that you got away from your crazy mom, because she sounds incredibly controlling and you definitely do not deserve that. My awful mother lied to me straight to my face just so she could trick me into moving back to my home state. And now that I'm here, things have gotten so much worse. And now I'm feeling so lost and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So there I was in Savannah, a beautiful city full of vibrant people. Sure, there is some crime, but nothing too bad. But I had a bad run of luck and a bad string of roommates. And in this city, I had a lot of ups and downs. I fell in love for the first time in 10 years, and then everything went downhill. She wound up cheating on me and tried to move the new guy into our apartment. She wasn't on the lease, so I trespassed the new guy, and she went with him, leaving behind all her stuff, which was really depressing. I tried getting another tenant, but he was worse than the last one. He stole $300 from me, and I wound up finding out that he was completely out of his mind, and he did illegal substances all the time. Worse than that, this guy was definitely a criminal, which I found out from his parole officer. So, unable to make rent, I vented to my mother. She said to me that I need to come to Florida, that she has a room set up for me in the main house, and that I'll have my own room, a bed, and that I'll get to see my cat every day as she really misses me. So I figured at that point, screw it, just as long as I'm not sent to the shack I was in last time. Well, it turns out that's exactly what happened. You see, my mother is living with my aunt, and she is super religious, and while I never followed her faith, I was at one point a Christian, until whatever passes for a god these days decided to take my father away from me. Well, for some reason, she tells me the day that she comes up there that I'm not welcome at my aunt's house, and that none of the stuff that she had told me to get me to come back was ever true in the first place. Now, for a bit of background on the shack itself, it has no insulation, it is completely unfinished, the doors do not lock, and it's 2 minutes down the road from my uncle who is super racist. Now, I came out of Savannah traumatized. My father passed away in a horrific manner as the victim of a nursing home neglect. I lost my car, I lost the only relationship I had in years, and I had to leave behind all all my friends. All I needed was to be able to trust someone, but no, you simply cannot trust any of these idiots to keep their word. And here's the thing, she gets incredibly angry when I call her out for lying to me. She just shuts down and insists that she didn't lie, and says they decided by committee that it would work out better this way. I am extremely depressed and isolated. I'm at my wit's end and I have no hope for the future. I should have stayed in the shelter up there and told my mom to pound sand, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. That is awful, and I'm so sorry that you're going through that. Like, here you are already in an awful situation where you lost your girlfriend and you had $300 stolen from you, so now you can't even make rent and you're basically gonna be homeless. And instead of stepping up and actually helping you, your mom literally decides to basically throw you under the bus and trick you into going down to Florida, only to find yourself back in the same shack. That is really unfortunate, and honestly, I'm so sorry that that happened. So hopefully you're able to get away from this lady and escape this awful treatment that she's literally putting you through, because I really think you deserve way better than this. Am I the jerk for not giving my friend a ride? Because after backing out due to my own plans, she has now stopped talking to me and is completely giving me the silent treatment. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I used to occasionally hang out with this girl who we will call Mary for the sake of the story. We met each other in a cultural organization that I was in at my college. I went to a commuter school, so most of my friends, myself included, were local to the area. She lived about 30 minutes away from me, and she didn't drive, as she was hesitant to take the permit test again as she failed her first 2 attempts. For most of college, I was the friend who drives, as most of the people I was closest to didn't have a car. After I graduated, I was no longer the go-to person to give someone a ride, and that's because I started working and all this other stuff. However, Mary would always be hitting me up, asking me if I was going to all sorts of events that the cultural organization I used to be in at my college was hosting, and the answer was always no because I've graduated. So it was odd that she would think I'm trying to visit my college every other week. I eventually got a temporary position where I was working remotely from 8 to 5, and she would ask every now and then if I was available before 5 o'clock, which I found really odd, as I had made it clear to her what time I'm working, and yet she seemed to think that I can just get off whenever I want because I'm remote. She eventually asked me if in late February we could go to a mall that's about 30 minutes away from her house for about an hour, then drop her off in the city the college campus is in, which is about 20 minutes away from that mall. I initially said yes, as I had nothing planned around then, but I started planning a happy hour with friends, and the date she needed a ride happened to be a day most of my friends are available. My other friends pointed out that what Mary was asking me to do was too much, but then one of them offered an alternative where I would take her to my house for a pregame, and then she can Uber to the city the college is in from there. I brought up this idea to her and she just didn't like it, so I ultimately told her I couldn't give her a ride after my friends established that the day she was asking for a ride was the best day for all of us to go out. Well, since I backed out of giving her a ride, she stopped talking to me as she ended our Snapchat streak, and she has not asked to hang out or ask for a ride ever since. Now, I'm not too bothered by her not wanting to talk to me, as I figured she was using me as her personal chauffeur. I just find it odd that she's actually upset that I told her no, because for starters, I did not owe her because this wasn't an emergency, and she would never even offer me gas money. She also had enough time to find someone else to give her a ride, as I backed out within a week of her asking. I just hope she starts taking into account how much time and money goes into giving her rides, as many of my friends were surprised that she had the audacity to ask to do all of that without considering the time and effort that it would take me. So am I the jerk for not giving her a ride? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think it's pretty obvious that she was only using you for a ride, and the second those rides stopped, she was gonna cut you loose pretty much at the drop of a hat. And you know what? Unfortunately, sometimes you just run into people like that. They're friends with you because you provide a service of some kind, and that's about it. But also, how can she not see that what she's asking of you is completely unreasonable? So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if she truly was like actually your friend, then this would not be as much of a make or break moment in your friendship. A crazy entitled Karen follows me around in her truck and records me, as she was furious with me about something absolutely irrational. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened about 10 years ago. I was walking in my neighborhood with my infant son, who was about 14 months old at the time. One of our favorite features of the neighborhood was a beehive that had formed inside of a wall along the street, and I always loved watching the bees fly in and out just as much as my son did. I grew up around bees, and honeybees are quite docile unless you mess with them. Americans are irrationally afraid of flying insects in my opinion, so I was perfectly comfortable parking my baby near some bees in order to take a picture, and for anyone concerned, he was at least 5 feet from the entrance of the hive, and we've parked here to observe the bees many times without incident. I went ahead and I took my picture and I continued on my walk. 5 or so minutes later, I hear a car following me. Now, maybe they're just waiting to enter their driveway, and I'm walking across the sidewalk blocking it, so I turned and looked for a turn signal or something like that. But instead, there's an old truck about 10 feet behind me with an iPhone pointed directly at me. I was confused but also nervous, so I just kept walking. This truck then pulls up beside me, and this woman starts yelling, "What do you think you're doing?" I looked at her really confused and I said, "I'm walking my baby." She then goes, "What are you doing with my bees?" I then realized what she was talking about and I said, "I just took a picture of them." She then waves her phone and says, "I don't think so. I asked you what you think you're doing." Now, still confused at what she was talking about, I said again, "I took a picture of the bees." And that's all I really was doing. This lady then said, "Well, why are you there with your baby?" At this point, I thought I understood that she was critical of my decision to have my son near so many bees, so I told her, "I don't really care what you think, I'm just taking pictures." She then started to say, "I don't believe you. Why would you have your baby near the bees? I think I'm gonna hear from you again." Now, this whole time, I was actively walking along the street, and this crazy person was following me and filming me, all while I had my baby in a stroller. I repeated that I didn't care what she thought, and she finally moved on, screaming that she's gonna hear from me again real soon. Now, I have to be honest, I have no idea who this woman is. Does she really think that she owns the bees? No, that's absolutely not the case. The bees are actually in a shared wall, and it's shared between 2 houses and a commercial property. The wall must have an owner, but it is probably owned by all 3 properties, and the entrance to the hive was on the commercial side of the wall. After 10 years of reflection, I think she must have been the commercial property owner, and she thought I would park my baby by the bees just so he could get stung and then I could sue her. So she actually felt the need to follow a young mother with an infant and yell at me on the street in order to protect herself from me. And if that really is the case, then that's seriously the craziest thing anyone's ever done to me in my life. Yeah, that really is kind of a jarring situation, because here's a lady literally screaming at you and following you around as they film you. Like, that's not only incredibly intrusive, but also really rude and just slightly insane. Like, if she had just explained why those bees were so important and why they didn't like the original poster taking pictures of it, that literally would have solved all your problems. So good for you for getting away from this crazy Karen, because her behavior, especially around your kid, was completely inappropriate. An entitled Karen attacks my bartender friend, claiming that he had stolen her credit card and that she was going to sue him if he didn't give it back. But after watching her scream at my friend about these obvious lies, I decided that enough was enough, choosing right then and there to put this Karen in her place in a way that she will never forget for the rest of her life. Okay, to start things out, for a bit of context, I work a high-stress job that involves a fair amount of direct confrontation. Before that, I worked as a bartender for 5 years, so my empathy is higher for those working in hospitality, especially post-COVID. Furthermore, my childhood wasn't great, so I have some anger issues, but my awesome wife made me go to therapy. I can't thank her enough, as it has helped me tremendously, and I would recommend it to anybody. My local bar is about a quarter mile from my house, so I walked over after a really frustrating day and I sat down for a drink to unwind. The bartender and I have been friends for a few years now, and I could tell that he was stressed out. The bar is in a U shape, and on the other side from where I'm sitting is this drunken Karen and her sad husband in their early 60s. She is visibly intoxicated, loud, and very obnoxious. Her husband looks like this isn't the first time this has happened and has fully given up on controlling the beast. I'm checking the news on my phone and I'm sipping whiskey when I hear this awful Karen start to scream. She starts to yell out, "No, I gave you my card, and if you don't have it, then you must have stolen it." I glance up and I see that Karen is now standing and pointing at the bartender menacingly. Now, the husband is sitting with his head staring at the bar, trying to look as small as possible. The bartender is not one who deals with direct conflict very well, and really is a very easygoing, sweet guy. He says, "Ma'am, again, you gave me your business card, not your credit card, and I cannot charge anything on this. Please give me another form of payment so I can close you out." He then showed her the clipboard check presenter with the receipt and her stupid card still attached. Now, this mistake didn't register in her reptilian brain whatsoever, and now the 20 or so people still in this bar are all staring at the situation, but nobody is doing anything about this. My anger, by the way, is now at a 5 out of 10, but I keep quiet, assessing the situation from afar. This Karen kept screaming, "How dare you? I gave you my card and you're a thief, a lying thief, and I'm gonna get you fired." Now, the husband was still not looking up, and the bartender is visibly trembling, as he's the only one managing the place, and like I said, he doesn't have a malicious bone in his body. Now, I'm at about a 7.5 on my anger scale, and I'm trying to think of a way to diffuse this, but my fists are starting to clench while my blood pressure rises, remembering similar situations from my old bar days. The two kitchen staff have now come out from the back to investigate the commotion, and they are looking on absolutely wide-eyed. Now, a regular patron did try to step up and try to explain what she did wrong, but this Karen screamed at him, loudly proclaiming that the bartender 100% stole her card and that he should be arrested. The whole bar then went completely quiet, and it was right about here that I absolutely lost it. Standing up on the footrest of the bar stool, I pointed at her from across the bar, and I shouted, "Who in the world do you think you are, you stupid entitled jerk?" Only trust me, I didn't say jerk. I continued by saying, "The bartender had already told you 3 times you gave him your business card. What in the world is wrong with you? Pay your tab and get out." When I said that, there were 5 solid seconds of silence. All eyes were on me, but you know what? I said to myself, screw it. This entitled jerk deserved it. The bartender is stunned, but looks somewhat relieved. Then, amazingly, this entitled Karen begins to argue with me, but I cut her off mid-sentence. I say, "You need to shut up. You do not get to speak anymore. Pay your tab and get out." And it was like all the rage that I couldn't say as a bartender came out of me all at once. But then I decided to direct my anger at her stupid husband. I looked at him and I said, "You, what in the world are you doing? Pay the tab and get her out of here. How are you still sitting here?" This drunken Karen rambles some drunken gibberish at me, but I sit down and glare menacingly at the both of them. The husband finally pulls out his card, pays the tab, and physically escorts her out of the building as she continues to yell profanities at myself, the bartender, the bar's name, and literally everybody staring. I then pick my phone back up and I begin to finish off my whiskey, still loaded with adrenaline. The bartender then comes up to me and silently mouths a thank you towards me, handing me a shot of some sort while the tension in the bar started to die down. And finally, I was experiencing some peace and quiet, but not even 30 seconds later, I get a strong tap on my shoulder, and as I turn around, I see that it's the first customer who tried to talk to this Karen. Now, expecting no conflict as we were familiar with each other, I say hello and I ask him what's up. He then says to me, "How dare you call that woman such a horrible name? That was completely uncalled for." And he was aggressively saying this literally a foot from my face, while huffing his chest and invading my personal space. Now, this guy is also in his mid-60s and has the look and demeanor of a good old boy. And right about now, I'm standing on the footrest again with steam billowing out of my ears. I look at him and I say, "Really? If you're that offended, why don't we step outside and have a chat? Then you can tell me how you really feel." But before it could escalate any further, the bartender rushes over and interjects. The bartender came to my defense and said that I did nothing wrong and that this guy needs to stop. That woman is vile, and I'm the only one who got her out of here. The bartender then asked for this guy to cash out, get his stuff, and leave. Well, this old guy looks at me incredulously, nods at the bartender, and then shuffles back to his seat. I sit back down and I thank the bartender, and I apologize for exploding, saying that my day was already awful before all of this happened. But he just waves it off with a smile, telling me that I have a free tab until Christmas. He then walks over to the register, comes back and hands me her business card. He says to me, "Do whatever you want with this." And it's then that I find out that she's a real estate attorney. And I think it's safe to say that you might know where this story is going next. The next day, I find the contact information of her firm's partner, and I email them exactly what happened. I received no response back. However, I did check this entitled Karen's LinkedIn page after the new year, and she had stopped working at the firm in December. So maybe it was karma, but who knows? But I hope she was fired or had to resign, because in my opinion, she wholeheartedly deserved it. Yeah, there's really no good excuse for acting that way. Like seriously, all you had to do was be a reasonable human being, and then maybe, just maybe, you wouldn't get called out in front of literally everybody. Like either she was so drunk that she didn't realize that she handed over her business card of all things, or this stupid Karen thought she was so important that she could somehow get away without paying her tab. And what's the deal with her husband? He was right there knowing that all of this was happening, and instead of being like, "Okay, it's time for us to go," or something like that, he just hangs his head in shame and sits there as if he's got no way of handling the situation. It's like, dude, you need to man up. This is such a weird way to act right now. But regardless, the way that the original poster shut this Karen down, in my opinion, is so awesome, because her behavior was absolutely atrocious, and she deserved to be put in her place in the way that she was. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for choosing to limit my involvement with my sister's kids after she chooses to use me as a bad example when teaching teaching her kids any kind of life lessons, because right now I'm very offended, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I've always been close to my older sister who's 38 years old. I love spending time with her kids, and I often help out in my free time. Growing up wasn't easy. I juggled multiple jobs, and I worked hard to get where I am now without ever asking for financial help from anybody. Well, she's been using my past struggles as examples for her kids to avoid a lot lately. She'll say things like, "Look at Auntie. She struggled a lot because she didn't plan well. Make sure you study hard and get a good job so you don't end up like her." Then she will wink at me as if to reassure me that it's for their good. But what does she even mean by end up like me? I know that I'm not as successful as her or our other siblings, but I have a job and a place of my own. I've never asked for money from them or needed to stay with them in any kind of way. And I'm not rich, but I am financially stable now. It just stings because it feels like she's only focusing on the negative parts and not acknowledging how far I've come. Last week, she asked me to sit down with her kids to give them some kind of advice. During the conversation, she brought up a specific situation from my past as some sort of lesson of what not to do in life. Now, for reference, a few years ago, I went through a messy divorce that was emotionally draining and took a toll on my well-being. So she decided to use this difficult experience as a cautionary tale for her kids to warn them about the importance of making careful decisions in relationships. Every time I hear my personal experiences discussed in this way, it makes me feel exposed and reduced to a lesson about what not to do. Talking about it made me feel like my whole life was reduced to that one mistake. When I brought it up to her, hoping that she might have some kind of understanding, she just argued that she's trying to teach her kids to be responsible and learn from others' experiences. She thinks it's good for them to hear about my failures so they can avoid similar situations. I told her that I do get her point, but when she uses my past as a negative example without also acknowledging my successes, it honestly all just feels so unfair. I said that if she keeps painting me that way to her kids, I will seriously have to rethink how involved I am with them. I'm afraid about how this might affect our relationship and about how her kids will view me, but I believe it already took me so long to set any kind of boundaries. So at this point, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk in this situation, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your sister is being so rude to you right now, it is not even funny. She's literally painting you as a failure, like that's the only thing she's doing. She's literally going to her kids and being like, "You see my sister over there? She's a bad example. You don't want to be that." And then, just like you said, she's completely ignoring all the good things that you've accomplished. And that is legitimately so insulting, because you do not deserve that in the slightest. You don't deserve to have your life watered down in front of these kids as if that's all you really are. Like, you clearly have accomplished so many things in your life, and these are all good, strong things that you're proud of. So for your sister to cherry pick all the negative things that have happened in your life, in my opinion, is so toxic and just completely unacceptable. Am I overreacting for crying when my partner called the cops on me? Because after all the awful things that we've gone through over the past week, I'm seriously at my breaking point and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my partner and I had a fight last night, and it really wasn't even a fight to begin with. He had gotten his new car and had driven for 8 hours that day home because he couldn't wait for the weekend to get it. Now, I helped him get this car, so I asked in return that he would help me by just giving me details so I can fill in a form for a rental application. I want us to move out because the place we live in is too small for even one person, let alone for the both of us. And on top of that, he complains that it's a mess all the time. I just asked for this one small favor. I wanted it done that day, but he got his car without really asking me or anything, so I was going to do it tomorrow. I just needed some quick details like the street of his work and some references, and I asked for it to be done by tomorrow. Well, he then lashed out at me, claiming that he doesn't care about the house and that all he cares about is that he got his car. Now, I'm pretty upset by this, and I asked for my money back that I gave him to help get the car in the first place. And when I did this, he actually called the cops on me. They eventually came, but they didn't do a single thing. And I had to explain to them that this isn't the first time he has done this, and a few days ago, he had some weird psychological mental breakdown. Now, for a bit of backstory, he broke up with me because I wanted to go get the car this weekend when I have Monday off. But instead, he got mad and booked a flight for that day because I told him if he broke up with me, then I'll take my car back. He ended up missing the flight, but I was nice enough to drop him off to get picked up by the bus. But then, after missing the bus, he called me up and absolutely lost it on me. He was screaming at me that it was my fault that he didn't know he had to be there an hour before his plane. When I picked him back up, he lost it again. He tried to jump out of the car while driving at 100 kilometers an hour on the freeway. He nearly got me into a crash, and he tried multiple times again again as I yelled at him for doing this because he seriously tried to unalive himself, and at this point, I'm just taking him to the hospital. Well, he didn't like this, and he said he would try to get out of the car when the light was red at a stoplight, but I didn't let him as he told me he would just jump on some train tracks because he couldn't get his car. It was overall just a terrible night, and I couldn't go to work the next day as I only got about 2 hours of sleep. Flashback to the present time, and I explained this to the cops and about how he is with me, that he is off his ADHD medication, but I don't think that it's the ADHD that's causing these outbursts, and they completely agreed with me. And they also said that they couldn't force either of us to leave. Eventually, his mother called, who has been supportive of me in the past, and on the phone, she basically told me to stop crying as it's not going to get me anywhere. She said that her son was tired from driving and that I should clean up the place, because apparently he was also complaining that I wasn't cleaning. But here's the thing, I work 12 hours a day. We have our chores, and he wanted the dishes done, which is his chore, and I told him that I won't do it after how he was the night before. Like, it was awful to have the cops called and also have your partner try to unalive himself within a few days. He has agreed to therapy and booked an appointment in front of me, but that's a month and a half away. I don't think I can wait that long, and I'm honestly getting tired. I'm staying at my dad's while I wait it out, and I'm having a chat about us in public on Saturday to decide things out. I just can't keep doing this because I feel like I'm being used. So am I overreacting? Is it not right for me to cry? Do I have it wrong in some kind of way? What should I do? Wow, this sounds like an exhausting situation. Like, seriously, this guy is out of his mind if he thinks the way he's acting is appropriate. For starters, this guy does not sound like he is all there. I think it's safe to assume that he has some kind of mental health problem going on, especially by the way he was trying to blame you for everything going wrong in his life, but more to the fact that he tried to jump out of a moving vehicle. Like, that is insane behavior. This is a car we're talking about, and he's acting like this all because he couldn't get his way right when he wanted it to happen. So I know, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be questioning this entire relationship. This does not sound like someone I would ever want to be involved with, let alone live with them in any kind of way. Like, good lord, you can find someone way better than this. So to answer your question, of course you didn't overreact, because someone who's going to call the cops on you after you ask for your money back, in my opinion, does not sound like someone you ever want to put up with. An entitled jerk screams at a Walgreens employee after they forgot to check in for their stupid appointment. But after watching this all go down and deciding that I wasn't going to put up with it any longer, I walked up to this entitled jerk and I put him in his place in a way that he will never forget. Here's what happened. So this happened back in the fall of 2023, and I had made an appointment at Walgreens for my booster COVID shot. I was running a little bit late, and I ran into Walgreens and got in line to check in for my shot. I was behind a woman who had an appointment before me, and while I was waiting, I overhear a man sitting in a chair, sighing loudly and sounding very frustrated. I continue to wait in line to check in, and while I'm waiting, he calls his wife and starts to loudly complain that no one has helped him yet, and that it's been 15 minutes since his appointment. She then asks something about whether or not they know that he's been waiting, and he responds that of course his appointment was 15 minutes ago. Now, after I check in and sit down, he gets up to complain that no one has helped him out. Now, you might be wondering, what kind of question did the Walgreens staff ask him that enraged him so much? But literally, all they asked him was whether or not he checked in. When this guy heard this, he lost his mind. This guy said, "No, I didn't check in. My appointment was 15 minutes ago." The Walgreens employee says, "Please fill out this paperwork and we will help you as soon as we can." This guy then says, "Well, no one told me to check in. How am I supposed to know?" The Walgreens tech then calls the woman ahead of me, and as she walks in, this entitled jerk literally swings his head around, looking absolutely astonished. He's making faces and gestures, indicating that he cannot fathom how they could possibly call the person who checked in and is done with the paperwork ahead of him, and yet he himself has still not filled out a single thing. Now, I'm the next one to be called back, and he was complaining so much that he had no idea that he was supposed to tell them that he was there, as he just kept repeating, "Well, how was I supposed to know what to do?" When I get in there and I get my shot, I tell the tech who worked with me, good luck with the next person because you're definitely gonna need it. But then I get my own personal victory. You see, I work in retail, and I have wanted to tell some of these idiots off so many times. So I walk out of my shot and he is still complaining. I start to walk out of the store, but I think to myself, no, this is my chance. So I turn around and I walk straight back towards him. And as I'm walking up, he is still complaining about not knowing how to check in. So I look at him and I say, this is not their fault. Somehow, all of us figured out how to do this without being told. This is always how appointments work. Now, fast forward months later, and I am still in awe that this man didn't understand how appointments work. I'm guessing his wife always handled everything, and he just didn't know how to function without her. But regardless, I'm so glad that I put this guy in his place, place because his behavior was absolutely disgusting. I cannot stand people who act this way, where they attack somebody in customer service because of their own incompetence. Like seriously, this guy had no reason to scream at these Walgreens employees. They didn't do anything wrong. Like the attitude of this old guy was just so obnoxious. He is so entitled that he thinks he's some kind of VIP where they're just gonna call him back as if he's someone that they're waiting on. But it's like, seriously, dude, what are you talking about? The only way anyone's ever gonna know you're there for some kind of like medical procedure or like a medical facility in general is by going to the front desk and being like, hi, I want to check in, please. And the thing is, this guy absolutely knew that. He probably just forgot, and somehow that's everybody else's fault. But at the end, I love the fact that the original poster turned back around and said, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. Let's tell this guy exactly how I feel. Because as someone who used to work in retail at one point in my life, that is one of my dreams as well, to step in and put one of these entitled jerks in their place. So to see you step in and actually be able to do that, in my opinion, is absolutely amazing. Am I the jerk for refusing to go on a family vacation that my mom is practically begging me to go on? Because at this point, I'm so tired of being a second mother in my house that I'm really left scratching my head, unsure of what I need to do next. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I'm refusing to go on holiday with my mother and 5 younger siblings because I am sick of being around them. Now, for starters, my mom is a single mother, and I'm like the second mother to my siblings. I do everything for my family and have put my life on hold to help my mother out. I do the school run and pay for almost everything that my family needs. My mom isn't able to drive because of medical issues at the moment, so I'm her personal driver too. So I take her anywhere and everywhere. Sometimes I feel like she doesn't consider that I'm a human being with my own life and needs, and she expects me to drop everything whenever she needs me. There are also things that my siblings can do that she will always only come to me for. She puts a lot of pressure on me to fix things in her life, and this has been ongoing since I was a child. I know my mom has some attachment issues, but things have gotten out of hand and I'm just so fed up with it. Now, as a reminder, I'm 25 years old, and yet she calls me constantly if I go anywhere. She tries to police where I can go and who I can be around. She always tries to talk me out of my plans, saying things like, well, why are you leaving me? Even something as simple as me working in a coffee shop, she'll be like, oh, you hate us. You can work here. Why are you leaving your family? And it's like, what in the world are you talking about? I'm going for a few hours. What is your problem? My siblings think it's ridiculous that I even fall for it or even listen to her, but she's going through a lot right now with her health. I literally just don't want to stress her out anymore. Anyways, I always plan family trips, and we have a running joke where they all call me the family manager, and my siblings say that I act more like a mother than our own mother does. She just expects me to plan this summer trip, but I'm so behind in my work from dropping everything for her constantly. I want to focus on myself and my business this summer, so I said I don't want to plan the family vacations this year, and my 19-year-old sister is more than capable of planning it if my mom doesn't want to. Well, when I said this, she blew up at me and was being moody with me all morning. She mentioned that I would be paying for it anyways, so why not just plan it and book everything? She thinks she's entitled to my money because she's my mom. She thinks she's entitled to my time and that I'm selfish if I stop raising her kids. And at this point, I'm just so fed up. I want my own life. I've wasted so many years looking after her and the children. It's just not my job. So I told her I'm not going this year. I will pay for it if she needs me to, but I won't be there. But now she's in a weird state and she's refusing to talk to me. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I want to start this off with a positive note and say that no, I don't think you're the jerk for saying that you don't want to be a part of this, but I do think that you would be an absolute fool to pay for that vacation. Why would you pay for a vacation that you're literally not going on? It doesn't sound like that's anything that you should be responsible for, and in my opinion, it is completely unreasonable for her to be like, okay, well, if you're not going, you're still paying for it. It's like, what is she talking about? That is not going to happen. And if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would pay for anything about this trip, because her entitlement is absolutely repulsive. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.